Hey gamers, how's it going? Where am I getting music playing from? Hey gamers, something's glitching the hell out. There, it stopped. Okay. How's it going? Where am I getting music playing from? Hey gamers. Alright. Anybody else read this? I read this sometimes. It's been a while. I guess it's been 3 years actually. I caught up last night. There's always great panels from this comic. I swear to God. Today's going to be a pretty laid-back stream. Though the article, or the title, suggests otherwise. It's going to be pretty laid-back. So, if you were with me before I took my break, I was playing through Final Fantasy VII related content. So, obviously played the original game and Crisis Core. Hold on. And Crisis Core. And Crisis Core through. And that was before I went on break. Plan was, hey, we're going to play the Before Crisis, like, fan-made remake. I might do some read-along streams for the books. And then we'll get to Dirge of Cerberus. We don't got time. The time ain't there. So first off, the Before Crisis game, or not game, the Before Crisis remake, fan remake thing. I downloaded it and tried it out for a bit. Ooh boy, that thing is barely held together. It looks extra crispy, and it doesn't feel good, and it's boring, and it soft locks constantly. That is nothing to do a playthrough with, even a short one. So I have an alternative solution to this problem of, hey, get people that are watching all this Final Fantasy VII content I'm doing up to speed on Before Crisis. Okay, sorry. All right, and that is, we're going to watch some synopsis videos on stuff. There's some good ones. And we're going to watch some synopsis videos for Before Crisis. But first, we're going to talk about it just a little bit before we get into that. So, maybe you've never heard of Before Crisis, Final Fantasy VII before. What is it? Well, what I do love is on the Final Fantasy Wiki, there's literally something here called defunct titles. What else goes under defunct titles? Final Fantasy 14 1.0, First Soldier. I guess these are mobile games. The original version of that other Final Fantasy 13 game, the one with the school, and I can't remember, and it's fucking garbage, and I hated it. I didn't know Mobius Final Fantasy had died. It was on Steam. So there's some dead games. This is one of them. This is probably one of the most dead ones possible, because you can't even emulate it, really. What this was a flip phone game in an era where most people didn't have phones capable of playing games, and it was like a thing that only came out in Japan, and it was a live service game. In other words, it would get updates over the network, which, only Japan would have a network for the flip phone thing to be downloading additional chapters in a game at that point in time. Like, you gotta remember, this is 2006. This nothing even close to an iPhone was out yet. But yeah, it was one of those things that constantly haunted anybody who liked Final Fantasy VII but didn't speak Japanese. The way we have gotten content for this game over the years is pathetic and hilarious. I even pulled some stuff up here. So I say used to. I mean, it still exists, but I don't think anyone really uses sites like this anymore. But there used to be like fan sites like this called the live stream, which was just like a bunch of Final Fantasy VII content, and it's people that were, relatively dedicated and stuff like that. Oh, they launched a new website. I might check that out. The Shine. This is a good Twitter channel. Might check this out. We might check this out later. But yeah, it's you got your content in strange ways, strange bit and piece ways. So essentially, all we really got was the script, right? So if I go over here, you'll see here's a synopsis script, and it shows us some art and some probably actual resolution of the game, freaking images with short walkthroughs, and you can read the full script here. And the full script pages are dead. Oh, amazing. Amazing. You can't even do this anymore, huh? You can't even do this anymore. That truly is amazing. This is the deadest game possible. Well, there is one thing, and I'm sure Square Enix will find a reason to take it down now that there's absolutely no other way to access this. So we started with this, and we had these summaries that turned into, you can read the full script. And eventually we got to the year of 2011? Yeah, 2011. This channel, Grimoire Valentine, would upload all kinds of Final Fantasy VII hard-to-find stuff, like Before Crisis, and also the Dirge of Cerberus Play Online Story Mode, the online-only story mode for fucking PS2 Online, which barely anybody had or used. That's... oh, boy. And yeah, that online story mode might have even been Japanese exclusive, now that I think about it. It may have been Japanese exclusive with English dub or something crazy. It was some crazy combination. Or like Japanese exclusive, but there was a baked-in English subtitle to it. Or something crazy like that. Anyway, they have a playlist for Before Crisis. And this was basically how you would get it. And, good for them, where they were literally like transcribing into the text boxes translations from the script for this game. And obviously, like, even for 2011, it's like 480p, but it's crispy as fuck, right? But there's actually a decent amount of plot in this game for a game it's got like 20 something chapters. Even if it's a simple formatted play game, there's a lot of interesting plot elements and stuff in it. But but this was really the only thing we had, man. Like, and honestly, it's kind of like the pacing's not great to go through like 100 in 3 videos. You know what I mean? Like, it actually takes a long time to watch it. It's shorter to play than it is to watch. Now, as I said before, there is, if you are interested in doing this, like I said, and this is all the props to the person that made it, but it's not, it's not really very good. Here we go. It's available right here if you are super interested in playing this. So the thing you have to understand, this wasn't like take the assets or emulate the assets from the phone game. This was, by this point, the only way that you could get this stuff was these videos. So this remake was based off of taking the scenes from those videos and trying to build the scaffolding of a game around it. Dire. Absolutely dire. For one of the for a spin-off game and one of the most popular franchises of all fucking time, and this is what it's reduced to, right? Now, I still hoped that with Ever Crisis doing the thing, the mobile game, the Final Fantasy VII mobile game that has storylines from multiple Final Fantasy VII properties, that of all the things that they should have put a little effort into putting out before Rebirth came out, was to put up the Before Crisis story in Ever Crisis. It's a mobile game remake for a mobile game. It makes perfect sense, right? Nah, they've had like a full year, and they basically dragged their asses with Ever Crisis to have almost no content at all that's new or interesting. They have the original story, but they don't focus on it. They rather just, I don't know what they'd rather do with that, but they literally blew the one chance people had to get caught up. Fuck them. But anyway, suffices to say, there's no real good ways to do Before Crisis unless you're going turbo in with the script and watching the videos and trying to compress it down. And I could have done this if I hadn't been on break 2 months and building this model and taking in break and everything. But then I remembered, oh wait, a channel I watch sometimes actually did a pretty good synopsis of this game a few years ago. And that got me thinking, oh, okay, well maybe we could watch that. It's not very long. And then I thought, oh yeah. And then there's the books. We can't do the books, but if someone's done a video that gives a decent synopsis of what content's in the books, we could watch that together. And wouldn't you know it, when I looked, I found one of those too. Now that one was harder. There's not as much, what I would say, thorough or good content for that, but I think I found a good video. We'll give it a try. So today's going to be a lore dump and watch along, as I put in the title. So here's what we have on the docket. We're going to watch this, the ultimate recap of Before Crisis by Oni Blackmage, who does a lot of videos like this. He did this 5 years ago. It didn't feel like it was that long ago, but I guess it's 5 years ago. The scripts were still up on the website link 5 years ago. So this is like the last person who had a chance to make good content based on the full script of it. So I don't know if we're going to get anything better than that. Then I was thinking about the shorts that come with Advent Children. See, I went and bought Advent Children on Amazon Prime, thinking I could do the watch party. Isn't part of the watch party service, even though I bought it off Amazon Prime Video. There's like 3 or 4 little asterisks, and then guess what? Advent Children falls into them, so you can't do the watch party feature with it. Now, it's coming out in theaters on the 22nd, re-releasing. So maybe I don't want to even mess with it, because they're probably being protective of it or whatever. I am curious. I haven't heard a single thing about it, but there's shorts. There's the short Last Order, which came out with the original Advent Children, limited edition in Japan only. And then there's Episode Denzel, which is an animated version from On the Way to the Smile, one of its chapters, that came in the Blu-ray set when they released it as Advent Children Complete, which I also don't believe is available online at all. At all. And I haven't heard a single thing about this Advent Children theatrical release having any shorts before it. So basically, now we got 3 pieces of abandonware defunct content that we're going to talk about today. But Last Order, hey, look what I found. Some people ended up doing a fan English dub, which I think gets us in the clear to actually watch this. Because it's completely dubbed over differently. So that'll be fun. So here's what I want to do. We'll watch this Before Crisis thing. We'll watch this fan dub of Last Order that's Creative Commons. And actually has characters from Before Crisis in it. It's one of the crazy things. The only place they appear animated. And And then we have this video that's a longer one, that's a summary of the books and stuff like that. And I'll talk alongside them, stop and talk about certain things alongside it as we do that. This person is Phil Games. He's the one who did this in 2020, also 3 years ago. A lot of people did. I guess when Remake was coming out, a lot of people made stuff like this. These videos are still up 3 years later, so I guess they're probably pretty safe. And then, I don't know. After all of those, maybe I'll have something else. I'll be thinking about it. I'm thinking about it just because it doesn't seem like anyone gives a shit about it, so I'm probably good. But anyway, let's start by, we're going to be watching the ultimate recap of Before Crisis, Final Fantasy VII, by Oni Blackmage. Let's get our volume up here. I'll turn down just maybe a notch. We'll go full screen. And he probably will recap some of the misery I just did, possibly, talking about how hard it is to get this content, but we'll see. All right. Let me move Sign over a bit so he takes up a little bit less space. There we go. All right. Let's go.
Released by Square Enix in the year 2004 on mobile phones, Before Crisis Final Fantasy VII would be Square Enix's first original mobile title. Directed by Hajime Tabata, who also directed Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII.
I am going to stop this one moment. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about. Before people even begin to talk about what's canon and not in Final Fantasy VII, I'm just going to go to this page right here. For Kazushige Nojima, the guy who wrote the scenario. Okay, he wrote the story for Final Fantasy VII, okay? Let's look at his other credits here. He did 8. He did 10. 10-2. He wrote On the Way to a Smile. He wrote The Kids Are All Right. All right, the guy who wrote Final Fantasy VII story wrote the novels. They're as canon as you can get. Every time a novel comes out, and I've said this before, every time one of these novels comes out, the next video game or movie or anything like that production immediately has direct references to these books. They're as canon as it gets, man. I don't know how else to say it. He's also written the stuff for the remake novels. He also wrote remake story and scenario. He wrote the lyrics for the ending credits. If you've never looked the lyrics up, maybe do that. The newer book. He was only supervisor for the first Soldier, but he wrote the new scenarios in Ever Crisis. So, basically, if you like Final Fantasy VII's story and characters, this guy makes it. And all this side work, like, it's not like these are side works that don't involve him. There's exactly one of these. Hold on, let me check real quick. There are 2. There are exactly 2 things in Final Fantasy VII that do not involve the man. And that is the first novel that was released, The Girl Who Travels the Planet. But this novel does get referenced and used a lot, even in the other novels. So there's some transference there, so it's still significant. And Last Order. And Last Order had issues. It had things that differed from Crisis Core and Final Fantasy VII's depictions of the events. And in all cases where they differ, Last Order is the non-canon. But it's also an animated freaking Nibelheim flashback, so it's cool. Sometimes just being cool is enough, you know? Anyway, that was my first interruption, but let's get into this.
Final Fantasy Type 0 and Final Fantasy 15, and written by series regular Kazushige Nojima, the focus was on creating a story with the Turks as the protagonists.
Yep.
For characters, the player can choose to play as one of 11 playable Turk agents, each with a unique weapon specialization and their own origin story. For gameplay, combat is
So
in real
basically,
time,
they had a
and the
bunch
player
of
can gain
pick your character
experience to level
things,
up their stats
and they have minor
materia.
differences. Some of them
The
have
phone
some
game had a
different,
unique materia generation system
plot
where the player could take
backgrounds.
a picture and it would make a new
The
materia
one everyone
based on the
knows
dominant
best
color
is
of
the
photo.
shotgun girl because
For
that's the
story,
only one in the
player assumes
videos,
the role of the
and
Turks,
therefore that
while
was the
combating
character
terrorist
used in the
organization
Unity
Avalanche.
remake thing.
Additional gameplay modes to gain more items or equipment, or side story
he's saying,
chapters
it's
and
a
optional
live service
bosses were
game.
added after release, and a re-release was rumored at one point. Keep in mind, this game was never released in English, so don't mind name discrepancies, and contextually, I'll be recapping a playthrough that utilized the female agent shotgun, so I'll be referring to
What
the
did I
original
just say?
character
It's
as
the only
female
thing anyone
agent.
has to work
The story
with.
only gets larger from here, so let's cut it down to size with a recapitation. The game begins in the streets of Midgar, as members of the organization calling itself Avalanche prepare to strike against the Shinra Corporation. Meanwhile, the agent, a new recruit to the Turks, Shinra's elite operatives, is on patrol as she overhears one of the Avalanche members.
Basically the
As she deals with her sudden attack,
remake,
she calls in the
large
suspicious
branch,
activity
other
of
branch
Song,
of Avalanche
who advises her to investigate as he
is a
turns to
direct
report
reference
this
to
to the head of
this.
the Turks at Bordeaux. As the Avalanche members blow open a route to the Mako reactor, the agent hurries to stop them but is quickly surrounded. Fortunately, another Turk member named Reno comes in to save her, buying her time to stop the enemies already within the reactor, and Reno is called out by the Avalanche officer in charge of this operation. The agent succeeds on her end, but finds Reno is taken down by the one in charge.
Yeah, the other
She
Turks
attempts
that
to
you
fight
know
back,
from the
but is
main
knocked
story
out by the
are
man
in
named
this game.
Sears. As Sears
Reno,
stands
Rude,
victorious,
and
a
Sung.
soldier comes out to tell him that there are new
Elena
orders by
is too
Fujito
near
to
the
gather
end,
in
but she isn't a
Junon.
Turk at this point
The
in
agent
time.
gets them out alive as Song
And they
reports
kinda
the new
can work
findings
as,
to
like,
Bordeaux,
guest
learning the group's name
characters
is
or
Avalanche,
characters during
and their next
special
move
stories.
is in Junon, where the president of Shinra currently is. Hurrying to Junon and meeting the president in his suite, they are just
Also,
in time to save him from a sudden
this
attack
nig's
on the
in this
building by
game.
Avalanche. After
As
the
a
agent
character
clears
that
the
appears
entire
about
hotel
halfway
of threats,
through as one
they
of the
escort
player
the president
characters
to
you
the
can
venue in
get
which he
added
gives
to
a
your
public
roster.
speech, during which more assassins strike during a sudden blackout.
They don't call her
A man named Fujito steps forward to introduce himself and give Avalanche an explosive debut by taking over the Mako cannon with the intent to fire it directly at Shinra headquarters. As the agent and Reno hurry to stop them, Fujito doubles back to shoot President Shinra and head off. The president survives as Verdot touches base and authorizes usage of Sephiroth to eliminate their enemy.
Chapter
Reno
2
leads the
and
Shinra
Sephiroth's
troops in a
already
frontal
deployed.
assault to break the Avalanche occupation, while Song leads the agent to deal with the forces inside the cannon. The advanced security measures are also triggered due to the invaders, putting the agent in peril too, as she passes by dozens of slaughtered Avalanche members. As
You know
she
it's
secures the
bad
cannon
when the
control
person
room,
who's trying to do a
sword-wielding
really
woman from
good,
Avalanche approaches and attacks,
recap
and nothing the agent does
is
seems
using
to
the
faze
super
her.
crispy video
Just in
because
time,
that's
the
all that's
legendary soldier
available.
Sephiroth steps in, who was actually the one to kill all the terrorists earlier.
Oh
though
man,
surprisingly,
power
the
level
woman's able
set
to
for
block when a
Elf,
Sephiroth
leader of
strikes.
Avalanche.
She introduces herself as Elf, the leader of Avalanche, who opts to pull out for now, as Sephiroth warns the agent not to take her lightly. As they debrief, Verdot explains the Shinra executives will decide the next course of action, but the one thing that is for certain is that Avalanche is now a recognized threat. A few days later, it has been decided that Soldier will be expanded in order to handle Avalanche, and so new talent will need to be scouted. Reno, Rude, and the agent are assigned to work together on this effort,
So this is
as
where
they search
the,
out Soldier candidates, sometimes taking them by gunpoint.
The
Rude
Turks
explains the reason so
kidnapping
many candidates are needed
thing they
is
always
because a few
mention in
qualities are
FF7
needed to make the
is
cut
coming
for
into
Soldier,
play.
and so very few
They
will
basically-
actually make it.
Hey, let's
One
go
of the
to a
noteworthy
fight club
candidates they pick up in Costa
and
del
find
Sol
tough dudes.
is a particularly large and battle-hungry man named Azul, who still is no challenge for Rude.
Recruit them.
Later, Song
Azul
warns that
there
Avalanche
is
forces
gonna
are
show up
approaching
later.
the harbor they will be
It's gonna
knocking
show up
at,
in a
and Sears is
later
there,
stream.
intent to free the Soldier candidates and prevent Soldier from expanding. As the agent helps fight back Avalanche, Rude, seen as the strongest of the Turks, faces down Sears, who takes him down with alarming ease. Song tells him the ship Avalanche is on, and Reno and Rude
Can't
head out to
believe he
handle
lost
it, while the agent settles
to a
things with
department
Azul,
store.
who actually wants to join Soldier and live a life of constant battle. Meanwhile, the tag team of Reno and Rude is just enough to overpower Sears, as the mission ends up being a success for the Turks. Elsewhere, Elf and Fujito are discussing their next plan, which is to steal some top-secret information from Shinra. Back in Midgar, the agent is there to escort Dr. Rayleigh, who is transporting vital information about Soldier, though among the other guards is a
there's
common
our boy.
infantryman named Cloud, who is eager to prove the usefulness of common soldiers to the Turks.
This is
His
Cloud
naive ideals and
before
foolhardy
he's met
bravado
Zack.
constantly interferes with the agent
This is early
and
enough in
compromises the
Cloud's
mission
career
as he gets
as a
on the train
military
and leaves
policeman.
engaging with the enemy, causing her to miss the train as well. Hurrying to catch up, the agent makes it onto the train, walking in on Cloud getting knocked out. She saves
he's
them
getting
both, though Cloud
punched,
still complains about the
basically.
cold nature of the Turks, as well as cursing his own weakness. The agent single-handedly handles the death magic
So,
wielding
yeah, to be
terrorists while
clear,
securing the
that's
train,
Cloud having
protecting the
failed
doctor,
out
and
of Sol
babysitting
trying to
Cloud.
get into Soldier.
The enemy manages
And
to
just
steal away
starting
the
his career
disc,
as
though
a
fortunately it's
as a
biometrically locked to
Cop,
her.
basically.
Leaving for her next assignment, the agent recognizes Cloud's
not a
guts
cop,
for constantly
private
trying,
military
and the two
police.
seem to understand
Difference.
each other just a little bit better. Elsewhere, it turns out Fujito is able to get past the security measures of the disc and analyze it. Now learning the secrets of Soldier, they seek to improve their anti-soldier measures, though there are a few things they will need from Dr. Hojo, the head of Shinra's science department.
This sounds familiar, doesn't
A
it?
few days later, the Shinra executives are discussing the increased damage being caused directly by Avalanche, and Vice President Rufus points out Avalanche is suspiciously aware of Turk operations and movement, as well as evading investigations on their headquarters, suggesting an information leak somewhere. As more time
Rufus is
passes,
such
we
a
see at
dick.
Icicle Lodge, some troops of Avalanche are somehow getting a substantial upgrade that puts them on par with actual soldiers. The Turks get the report as the agent is sent
So
to
now they're getting
investigate,
their
where she finds tanks
science
full of strange
experiment
liquid Avalanche has
members.
been immersing their new forces with, as well as captured Shinra soldiers. She takes on the leader of the Raven Special Forces, Tierce, and soon runs into another Turk, Two Guns, who helps her escape. She's surprised to run into
Guns?
Tierce fully recovered somehow, and after taking him down again, Fujito now steps in, revealing the capsules she discovered are what allowed them to revive ravens like Tierce. Boasting their immortality, he still disposes of Tierce given his repeat failures to defeat the agent, claiming Shinra lives will replace those stolen from the planet. They spar with Fujito, who is more than able to handle both Turks, though another Turk careens in with a truck to rescue them and escape
Oh,
together.
shit!
He introduces himself as martial arts as they return to base, and
I
after
love how
debriefing,
they're just-
President Shinra
Here's the
personally
thing,
orders
these
Zack from
characters do
Soldier
have
to aid them in destroying the
design
facility.
page names.
Curiously,
I'll
Avalanche
show them to
again
you
knows of their
after this.
operation and ambushes them, capturing the soldiers and killing everyone else. Zack and the agent break in to find it curiously empty,
Here's
and
our
the
boy
captured
Zack.
soldiers have been brainwashed to fight
Now,
them. Zack snaps them back to their
during
senses just before they
Crisis
die
Core,
anyway, but it's too late as the
when you
self-destruct
do
sequence is
Sung's
activated,
limit
and
break,
Zack takes care of another Raven
sometimes
leader
you
before
will
clearing the
get
way
a
for them to
memory
escape in time.
of Sung.
Meanwhile, with all the obvious
and
information
Zack
leaks compromising Shinra's success,
visiting
Bordeaux is dismissed as
two
the head of General
graves.
Affairs investigations and is
And
forced to
that's
leave the
coming
Turks,
from this-
who are being
that
shifted
chapter
to
in
now
Before
report to
Crisis,
Director of Security Heidegger, who
where
also leads Shinra's
his
private
friends
army.
Sebastian and
Heidegger
what,
orders
Este
them
or
to work
something like
security
that
detail
die.
in Junon, where Avalanche troops are said to be headed. Song goes to see Bordeaux, who is now
Crisis
an
Core
observer,
came
knowing full
out
well the leak was never his fault, and
near
unable
the
to
end
accept
of the
Bordeaux's
live
dismissal.
service.
Heidegger does not value the Turks, though the feeling is mutual, making
Which is why
communication rocky as Avalanche
there's some
troops
similar
flood Junon
situations
in order to
near the
take
end
over
of
the
Before
airship there.
Crisis.
With Heidegger providing no guidance and enemy forces outmaneuvering them, the Turks are soon overwhelmed, and Bordeaux can no longer watch in silence. He blackmails President Shinra directly for his old position, while reassuring him his secret mission is still underway, and quickly leads the Turks into surviving and repelling the Avalanche invasion. After the operation, Bordeaux says he still doesn't know who was leaking information to Shinra, but his best guess would be Dr. Hojo, which would also explain Avalanche's recent gain of strength. Suddenly, there was a massive monster outbreak in Shinra headquarters from Hojo's lab, thanks
So
to
again,
Avalanche troopers, and the
This
agent
is
is
so
assigned
very,
to monster
very similar to the
extermination. As she approaches Hojo's
to the
lab, she
robots
witnesses firsthand
freaking out
Fujito and
in
Sears
Crisis
discussing
Core.
dealings with Hojo,
Like,
including claiming
people
responsibility
constantly
for the
trying to
lab
kidnap
monster release.
Hojo.
They offer him research data on something far greater than Soldier in exchange for working for them, and though the agent attempts to interrupt them, they show off to Hojo their own modified soldiers with powerful regenerative abilities. Intrigued, Hojo follows Avalanche away, and also recognizes Fujito as the one who stole the Soldier data earlier. Meanwhile, President Shinra demands Sephiroth be deployed to deal with the pursuit, as they know they cannot trust Hojo to place loyalty above research. The enemy succeeds in stealing a helicopter and getting away with Hojo, wherein Fujito informs Hojo about their leader Elf, offering her as Hojo's next test subject. They sweeten the deal for him by mentioning Avalanche has a secret sponsor, enabling them to have facilities on par with Shinra. Meanwhile, the agent has her pursuit halted as Avalanche drops a dragon on her, but it's instantly dealt with by the powerful
shit.
Sephiroth who
Green
arrives
dragons.
on the scene.
Not
With a
even
single
once.
swipe, Sephiroth also cuts down the
Sephiroth
helicopter
never
out
let
of the
those
sky,
fuckers live.
and Avalanche is forced to flee, surrendering Hojo.
It is
Hojo keeps
funny
to
how
himself what
on
he's
the
learned
nose
from Fujito, admitting to himself
these
he won't
spin-off
leave
games
Shinra
of the
mainly
time
because
were
Sephiroth is
reverentially
still here and still
Sephiroth
growing.
fights a green dragon in
Back in their
F7
base, their mysterious sponsor is
flashback. Therefore,
displeased at
we gotta
Fujito's
show
rogue
him
actions,
fighting a
but
dragon
still
on the
informs
phone
them of
game.
one of Shinra's top secrets, the location of the last surviving ancient. At the same time, the agent finds herself
So
lost
yeah,
in the
every
slums and
character
happens
in
to find
Final
herself
Fantasy
outside
VII
Aerith's house
party
and protects her
shows
from
up in this
attacking
game at some
Avalanche
point.
troops. As she takes it upon herself to escort Aerith to safety, Aerith takes the opportunity to ask the agent about the world outside Midgar, expressing her dream to travel the world someday too. Unfortunately, Sears corners them personally, taking down the agent and bringing Aerith to Elf. They ask her to join forces to fight Shinra, starting with telling them where the mythical Promised Land is, but Aerith confesses she doesn't know. Instead, she recognizes a voice within Elf, though Fujito stops her from elaborating. They stop the agent giving chase and beat her down, but Elf's health starts acting up, prompting them to leave her and Aerith for now. Meanwhile, Verdot reports that all the workers in the Nibelheim reactor, Shinra's most important reactor, have gone missing. The president mentions it was the company's first reactor, as well as houses a very important secret too, so the Turks are sent in to investigate.
Oh boy.
The agent is sent in, discovering dragons have swarmed the reactor, running into Tifa in the mountains as she makes her way down to the village. Song informs her Sephiroth is now being deployed to handle the dragons,
it just supposed to be
but
a
will need a
symbol
guide
of
to the
like
reactor up
the
in
reactor's
the mountains,
leaking
so
so
the agent
bad
persuades
that
Tifa
like
to be the one to help
classical
Sephiroth when they get to
fantasy
town.
super strong
Arriving,
monsters
the agent
are the
greets
norm
Sephiroth,
around here.
Zack, and Cloud, and informs them Tifa will be guiding them up the mountain, which makes Cloud nervous. The next day, everyone notes how odd Sephiroth is acting,
We're already
and
at
things
the
take a turn
Nibelheim
for the worst
flashback.
as
Damn,
Sephiroth
this
suddenly
guy
decides to
goes
burn the whole
fast.
village down. The agent pursues and confronts him on his madness, but Sephiroth blows her away with his immense strength.
So yes,
The agent is
more
knocked
people
out,
were
barely
in the
hearing Cloud
room.
check
Even
on her
more
and
people
Tifa
were in the
before
room.
barreling after
Never
Sephiroth.
mind the Genesis and
Zangan,
Zack and
Tifa's martial arts
Tifa and
master,
Cloud. Now
comes
there
in to
was
check
a
on
Turk
Tifa
as
and get her
well.
to safety, as the agent now comes across Cloud after he has collapsed after trying to deal with Sephiroth. Sephiroth then willingly jumps into the life stream, prompting the agent to report that Sephiroth is now dead.
Yeah, so this
Song
is not
receives the
that's not
report, while
canon
also
too.
wondering where Verdot is at such a critical
The
time,
Sephiroth
as Sephiroth
willingly
is actually
dying
alive,
thing,
using this time to gather knowledge from the life
that
stream
gets used in
directly.
last order.
The
It's
agent
not
guards the
canon.
wounded Zack and
Crisis
Cloud
Core
until
came
Song
out
and
later
Hojo arrive
and
on
said,
scene
no,
and ask her
absolutely,
to
that's
now
none of
clear
that
Shinra
fucking
Manor for them.
happened.
While doing so, she learns of failed experiments,
happened like the
such as their
original game
attempts to
said it
directly
did.
fuse materia to the human body, which was deemed impossible,
It's like
though
it's so
bonding through
it's so
means of a prosthetic
denigrating.
limb
It's so
has been
diminishing
found.
to the moment.
Meanwhile,
I don't know
Verdot
why
arrives
they
in
thought
Nibelheim,
to do that
and Hojo is
ever.
reminded of when they first met, and Hojo
What
involved
a,
Verdot
what
in one
an
of his earlier
awful, awful
experiments.
call to make.
Concerned for her safety, Verdot goes in
But at
after
least
the
they,
agent, and when
retreaded it.
investigating the basement laboratory, they find themselves in a strange illusion of Midgard somehow. Verdot takes the lead in this recreation of the agent's first day on the job, and the agent is impressed to see how strong Verdot is in person. He mentions he has an artificial limb that can equip materia, as they cross into another illusion of Calm, Verdot's hometown, on the day it was bombed and he lost his arm. Unfortunately, it
Here we
turns out it
go,
was
another
all due to a
hometown bombed by
miscommunication, but
Shinra.
regardless, the destruction of Calm and the death of his family is on his hands. To make matters worse, he tried to bring his wife, daughter, and all survivors to Nibelheim, but they were all killed by
So what do we
Shinra in
got?
order to cover up Verdot's mistake.
Nibelheim.
Breaking out of the illusion, they decide to
Corel.
put the past behind them, quietly acknowledging Nibelheim will be covered up in a similar
Calm
fashion.
here.
Outside,
Benora.
Hojo ensures the survivors of Nibelheim have been rounded
in
up
Ever
inside the
Crisis,
manor will not be
Rhodesia.
killed, but instead be living samples for his
At least
research,
5.
though their silence will be guaranteed.
Wutai, 6.
Song, Reno, and Rude all object, saying this job is too dirty, even for them, and Verdot understands, letting them leave as he will complete the job himself. To himself, he accepts he died internally during the Calm incident, and losing himself in work is the only way he can forget the pain. Leaving, the agent is glad Tifa got away, but wishes she managed the same for Cloud and Zack. Back in base, Verdot reveals to President Shinra that the headquarters for Avalanche is in Wutai, who authorizes their destruction, and Verdot now reveals who the mole in Shinra is. Meanwhile, the mole is leaking to Avalanche that Shinra is on their way to blow up their base, mentioning that with Sephiroth gone, the Turks are the only ones standing in the way of their plans. As the agent is deployed to head the operation, she runs into a young Yuffie, who sees her take care of an
So,
Avalanche trooper and
yeah.
learns that materia
Here they
might
talk
be the
about
edge she
Avalanche and
needs
Wutai
to make her
working
dream of
together.
restoring Wutai to its former glory a reality. After setting up the bombs, the agent is surrounded by Cirrus, Fujito, and Elf, and after battling, the agent manages to edge out a win, though after she leaves, they turn out to just be doppelgangers. Afterwards, the base is successfully destroyed. Shinra is fooled into thinking the Avalanche leaders all died too, and they now move into restoring public opinion. For that, they intend to launch the
So
world's
we-
first rocket into space.
so we have
At
this
the same
whole
time,
thing
it's
going
revealed that
on.
Rufus is the mole, dealing
Yeah.
directly with Avalanche, intent on using the rocket launch ceremony to have his father killed. As time
So, yeah,
passes,
it's
it's now
not
the
that
opening ceremony
Wutai
for the rocket launch,
is
and the
working
agent is the
with
bodyguard
Avalanche.
for Rufus. The ace
Rufus
pilot, Captain
is
Sig,
the
comes out to
funder
greet them,
of
proud to be
Avalanche.
part of Shinra's aerospace
And it's
program
basically
and
a
making
fucking
history with
inside
them.
job false flag.
Rufus believes the
kinda
space program
thing.
is a waste of resources,
This is
but it doesn't
probably
dampen
the
Sid's
biggest
passion.
plot
Not
element.
far, Sears is
in
there to
all
sabotage the
Before
launch
Crisis
and stage the president's assassination.
when it comes to remake.
Rufus agrees to go on a
because
tour of the rocket
Avalanche
to distract
is
Sid and the
still
agent,
active
and
as a
meanwhile,
large
one of the oxygen tanks is stolen,
and they're using the
preventing launch of the
same
rocket.
idea and
Though
plot
they get a
point
replacement
of,
one in, their
oh,
best
the
mechanic
Wu Tai
continues
must be
running tests
working
on
with
it,
Avalanche.
unsatisfied with the test
Oh, we
results.
got and they do the
It's
whole
down
trap
to the countdown
like
of launch,
to instigate
and she's
more
still
Wu
down there,
Tai.
pressuring Sid into sacrificing his
It's
dreams
super,
and canceling
super
the launch
obvious
at the
that
last
the
second.
Rufus funds
Sid
Avalanche
is still
thing
optimistic the rocket will
is
fly
still
again,
canon,
but with the
still
public
in play.
embarrassment of the failed launch, Shinra halts the space
The
program
way
due
that
to
he
Rufus's
shows
growing
up just
persuasion.
at the right time.
Meanwhile, Song now notices the occupation of
When he
Avalanche
does.
troops in the reactor being built in Corel and mobilizes the Turks to reclaim it. Meanwhile, within the coal mines of Corel, a miner named Barrett is tricked by Avalanche into leaving,
So
and
yeah,
as he leaves,
Avalanche.
hopes the new
This is
Mako
the
reactor
fucked
will
up
help
part.
the town flourish.
Avalanche is the
He
reason.
encounters the
Well,
agent,
I mean,
who tells him the
Shinra
truth of
made
Avalanche's
the decision to
occupation,
burn the city
and
down.
Barrett chooses
But
to help the
Avalanche
agent, guiding her into the
instigated
reactor
conflict.
unnoticed and saving her life from a boulder. Surprisingly, she finds Rufus there, and Verdona steps in, ordering them to seize Rufus and exposing him as the mole within Shinra and mastermind behind Avalanche. However, Rufus reverses the situation, showing Fujito above them alive and well, who has them all surrounded. However, Fujito chooses now to betray Rufus, explaining Avalanche has enough support so they don't need him anymore, and prepares to blow up the reactor. As Elf and Sears come out, Verdona recognizes Elf as Felicia, his daughter long thought dead. This
Hello,
shock causes
Felicia.
forgotten memories to come out now, as Elf remembers being experimented on and left for dead by Hojo after the bombing of Calm, causing her to collapse. Fujito is not surprised by her collapse and was counting on it, as Sears chooses to escape with Elf out of concern, and Fujito proceeds to blow up the reactor. The Turks urge Verdot to go after his daughter as they continue to arrest Rufus
Avalanche
by order of
blows
the
up the
president,
reactor,
and Verdot announces
and
this will
Barrett's
likely be his last mission,
village
as
failed,
death is the only
like,
way out for a
pays for
Turk.
it.
He now chooses Song
Which
as his
makes it
successor
really
to lead
ironic
Turks
that he
going
joins
forward,
Avalanche,
as they hurry to escape the
but
reactor.
they don't accept
Sears
him
knocks
into the
agent
main
down
branch
into the
because they
reactor
think
depths,
he's
while at
too
the same time the
extreme.
president sends another director, Scarlet, down to Corel
They're
to
the one
handle
that
the
got
bombing
his
of the
whole
reactor.
fucking village killed.
As the agent recovers, they escape the bomb explosion, but are now trapped underground
And I
while
think
the
that plot
facility can
element
still
will
crumble
come
on
to
top
play.
of them.
And
It
Rebirth.
turns
I
out
think
Avalanche has turned on Sears too,
Barrett
as it
has
was
this
Fujito
whole
who pushed
character
Sears
arc that
down the
goes down
reactor
from
when he knocked into
before
the agent.
Final Fantasy VII,
The two
during
form
it,
an
and
uneasy
after.
alliance, as Sears reveals
How he
Fujito has been
deals with
using
his,
everyone to reveal his
you
goal
know,
of
transplanting
wiping
all
out
of his
all life
anger
on
and
the
stuff
planet
on
in
to
order for the
others,
planet to heal its
onto
own
Shinra. I mean,
wounds.
Shinra's
In
deserving
order
of
to
anger.
do so, Elf's
But
unique materia
how he
must be
transplants
activated
that,
alongside the unique one
and
he
how
has
his
on
growth
him.
comes from
But
him
Fujito is still trying to figure out how.
learning to basically
As they move, Sears' injuries get worse as he reveals
not
his
be a
history
victim, but
behind
be an
meeting and being
actor,
inspired by
a
Elf and her
proactive
mission to
person in
topple
his own
Shinra.
life.
The
And
agent commits
the
to
life of his
saving
daughter
Elf
and
since
stuff.
she's Verdot's daughter, and working together, Sears
So,
sacrifices himself to
I
hurl
think
the
there could
agent
be a
across
really
the gap
good
to
moment
safety as the
where,
reactor collapses and swallows him.
you
Back
know,
at headquarters, the president makes Rufus's connection
this whole
to
thing
Avalanche
would,
top
I
secret
bet,
to
you
only
know what?
himself and the Turks.
I would say it would
Otherwise,
happen
the agent is
after
still in
dying.
critical
It would
condition on top
happen
of being exposed
after
to
all
Mako
of
inside
that.
the reactor,
After it's
so
far
recovery is
too
uncertain.
late.
Finally, since the only way out of the Turks is
You
death,
know?
Song is ordered to find Verdot
After it's
and
too
kill
late
him
to
for
change
certain.
anything, that's when he would
As
find
the agent
out.
comes to, she's greeted by Turks Shuriken and
Cisne.
Katana, aka
Yeah.
Cisne and Balto, who inform her she's been in a coma
he says
for 3 years,
okay, the Katana
as well as
guy,
all the curious
yeah,
pyramid
his
material
design
left
name's
with her
Balto.
from Sears.
He's a swordsman from
She tells them all of
Gongaga.
Fujito's plot,
So he's
and
from
while
the
they
same town
already
as
know
Zack.
this, Avalanche has curiously ceased all activity since that day. Fujito, Elf,
This
and
is a
Verdot
time
have
jump.
also all been missing, and the agent is informed of the kill order issued on Verdot. Back on her feet, the agent's first comeback mission is with Reno to capture an endangered species for Dr. Hojo, a tiger-like beast with a burning tail that can talk in Cosmo Canyon. We now see Nanaki speaking to Bugenhagen as they prepare for a 50-year ritual that must be performed with a male and female of Nanaki's tribe, but he's nervous.
So yeah, there's a
After
female.
he leaves, the Turks
I mean,
come in to
obviously
speak to
there is. He
Bugenhagen,
has a
who
kid
mentions
in the
Verdot
ending
was
of
here
Final Fantasy
earlier.
VII. He has 2 kids.
He was asking about the materia inside of Elf that can apparently call forth an extraordinary summon that can end all life on the planet. Even though Fujito cannot evoke it yet, the materia is still draining Elf's life force to compensate for being incomplete, so Verdot is looking for a way to safely extract the materia from her body as he also searches for Elf. Surprisingly, they find Avalanche troopers here and in large numbers, while Janae, a
that could be a
female of
subplot.
Nanaki's species, finds him running away from his responsibilities because he
they
doesn't
might,
want to be separated from her. Fujito now
instead of
approaches
just taking this
Bugenhagen,
wholesale, they
explaining
might
that he
take
needs
bits
to
and
figure out
pieces from
how
the
to
Fourth
activate
Crisis.
Elf's materia, since the
And
planet
maybe
is
some of
doomed
these
and the only
Avalanche
solution
characters
is to
show
return
up
everything to
in the same way that
and start anew. The agent
in the
then
same
spots
way that
Danae
Weiss
and gives
showed
chase
up
to
as like a
capture
super
her,
boss.
and Nanaki summons his
I
courage
could
to
see there
step in and
being
fight to protect Danae
an
and
elf,
Canyon.
Zirconade,
The agent wins, but agrees to allow
super
Nanaki
boss
to
or something
participate
like
in the
that.
ritual before they leave with him.
Since
At
there's
the
going to be
same
all
time,
these
it's reported
giant
to Song
enemies
that
and
2 research
weapons and
samples of
summons and
Nibelheim
stuff like
have
that,
escaped, and
if
it's
they
actually
build
Zack carrying out
a
a
system
comatose
around
cloud
fighting
away.
giant enemies that's
The Turks
new
are
in
deployed to
Rebirth,
apprehend them, but Song warns
could
them the
use
army
that
is
for a
also
super
marching out to
boss or
get
something.
them. The agent is surprised to learn Zack is the fugitive sample, and after informing Song, the agent chooses to look the other way as a favor to the soldier. Also,
Again,
she
yeah,
announces
this
her
is basically
intent to
the
investigate what occurred in the
Before
Shinra
Crisis
Manor lab,
version
and
depiction
arriving
of the
is shocked to
scene
find Verdot
in
also
Crisis
investigating
Core,
the same lab.
with
In the
some extra
basement, they find
context.
Vincent in a coffin, who reveals he was a former Turk and partner to Verdot. He reveals he has seen the strange pyramid materia before and directs them to where it is, while Verdot mentions they must gather 4 of them in order to save Elf. With some trickery, Fujito steals it from under their noses, and to fool the army that is spying on the agent's actions, Verdot knocks down the agent
That's
and
a
chases
really
after
fucking
Fujito.
strong
He
summon.
leaves her a
It takes
note which directs her to speak to
4
Reeve for
things
additional
linked
assistance.
to it to keep it from killing
Meanwhile,
you.
it's reported to the president by Director Scarlet that the Turks are defying their assassination order and aiding Verdot. In response, he orders Scarlet to handle the assassination. At the same time, Song gathers all the Turks, who unanimously agree to put their lives on the line and turn against the company in order to save Verdot and Elf. Now recognized enemies of Shinra, the Turks still have Rufus hostage in their secret headquarters, while they send the agent to meet Reeve. The agent encounters Ketchi, Reeve's remotely controlled toy cat, who tells them another pyramid materia is in Gongaga, while mentioning he and
So here's
Verdot
another
also go
important
way
plot
back.
element.
As the agent
The
locates another
Turks are
piece of the
basically
pyramid materia
betrayed
under
by
the
the
presence of
Shinra
Avalanche,
company
she is
before
surprised to
Final
be aided by
Fantasy VII even
Sears,
begins.
who survived after all thanks to Verdot, who reveals
Their
himself.
loyalty
He explains
is to
that when all 4
Rufus.
parts of the
It
pyramid
is
materia
not
are
to
gathered,
any other
Elf will
part
be
of
saved,
Shinra.
but a being known as Zirconiade
So
will appear and destroy
when you watch
everything.
the scenes,
Sears has an idea
and
that
you
if
think
an
about the
imperfect
timing of when
version
they happen
Zirconiade
near
is
the
summoned,
end of
Elf will
Final
be
Fantasy
saved,
VII
and they can defeat the
Remake,
summon before
with
it
the
ruins
Turks
the
in their
world.
office, and
They
they
leave
say we
together
gotta
to
go
gather
do
the last
something
piece, though
before
they're
the
meeting
president
spied
has
upon
even
by the
died.
army. When word
go
reaches
get-
President
to
Shinra,
get
he
Rufus
assigns Scarlet to eliminate
to
the
show
Turks
up
as
to be
well,
his
and capture
replacement.
Verdot so he can get back
Crazy
Rufus from
shit
the
like
Turks.
that. Like, it's
In
easy
the
to
meanwhile,
overlook
Zack and
that.
Cloud
Oh
are
yeah,
caught by the army
they knew to
despite
go
the
do
efforts of the
something
Turks,
before it
and as
even
time
happened.
passes, there is new Avalanche activity in Corel Prison. The agent is sent in to investigate, and while crossing a desert, discovers a
Because
dehydrated
Rufus is
Shallua
on house
collapsed in the
arrest near
desert,
Calm.
who recognizes the Turks.
That's why they
The
go
agent
get him from a
manages to get the
helicopter.
materia they need before Avalanche does, but Shallua spits back that she's a victim of the Turks.
Another
as she's looking
character
for
from
her sister
Dirge of
Shell,
Cerberus.
who was taken by the Turks to become a soldier.
So before Crisis
She
took a
also
lot of
reveals she
effort
used to
to
be with
bring in
Avalanche in
things
order to
from
learn
different
more about
games,
Soldier, but admits the
from
identity of the
different
group has
pieces of the
changed.
compilation.
They are saved by Verdot and Sears, who take Shallua away, while Scarlet arrives to corner Verdot and the agent with her army of robots and advanced weaponry. Verdot offers himself up to spare the agent, but Scarlet beats them both down anyway, while sparing the agent for now. Song arrives too late and informs the other Turks of Verdot's capture, who are at the end of their rope as Shinra directors all agree to disband the Turks. The president boldly publicizes the execution of Verdot, and while being cut off from Shinra, the Turks find it challenging to find out details, though they have succeeded in finding the materia to save Elf. Splitting up into a force to save Verdot and a force to save Elf, the agent is hiding in the wall market with the
It's
other
Elena.
Turks when they talk to Elena, the clumsy but hardworking little sister to the Turk handgun, who also works in the same bar. Sears points out Fujito will come after them since they have the rest of the materia he needs, and takes one piece to avoid a worst-case scenario. Meanwhile, Rufus decides to inform the Turks of when Verdot will be executed, but strikes a deal with Song alone for the location. After they talk, Song has the agent secure an escape route, while he joins Reno and Rude in rescuing Verdot. Unfortunately, Avalanche also kidnaps Elena, and Sears learns there is still a way to summon Zirconiade perfectly right when he is confronted by Fujito. The agent chases Avalanche onto a train in Midgar, and ends up trading the rest of the materia for Elena's release, which ends up leaving a respectful impression on Elena about the Turks. She hurries to get it back, but they end up slipping away, though Song and his team succeed in extracting Verdot. With everyone distracted, the president manages to steal back Rufus from the
There's
Turks'
a lot of
headquarters,
twists
and
in
Fujito
this
manages to
story.
use all 4 pieces of the
Like,
support
near the
materia
end,
on
it gets
Elf,
kinda
beginning his
complex.
summon. The agent dashes in to save Elf before the final materia is forcibly extracted from her body, clashing with Fujito. Their duel is interrupted as Elf's materia comes out on its own and joins the others, fusing to become one materia in the hands of Fujito, who flees to now attempt to summon Zirconiade perfectly. Meanwhile, Verdot and Elf are safe in the presence of Song, Reno,
meant
and
to be a
Rude,
full
though
screen
they
behind
soon
this.
battle the
Whoops.
army on their heels. Back with the agent, the rest of the Turks are gathered before the path
Final
Fujito
boss
followed to
time.
Zirconiade, and
Look at all
split
these
up into
dudes.
teams to find him. Catching up to Fujito, the agent is joined by Sears, as they combine their efforts to finally beat down the radical leader of Avalanche. Refusing to lose, Fujito takes Zirconiade's materia and fuses it into himself, transforming into a powerful monster, and strikes down Sears with a mortal blow. The agent is pushed to their limit, edging out a win against the augmented Fujito, and with his dying breath, Sears leaps in to blow himself up alongside Fujito, shattering the materia and ending Fujito for good, though Zirconiade's awakening still continues. Meanwhile, the army delivers new orders that by order of the president, the Turks' punishment will be suspended on the condition that Verdot is executed. Understanding that their old order ends now, Song turns about to shoot Elf and Verdot, stunning both Reno and Rude. Back with the agent, they make it to Zirconiade, who has manifested and already
this thing looks cool if I could actually get an idea of what it looked like.
The rest of the Turks all trickle in to back up the agent.
Seems like it looked cool.
Cutting off
Seems like it'd make a cool boss.
Taking turns at the overwhelming monster, their combined teamwork wear it down, but at a heavy cost as one by one their numbers fall against Zirconiade. Pushed to the brink of death, the agent has flashbacks of the people they've helped along the way, and suddenly realizes her own limit break. The attack lands with tremendous effect, as Zirconiade is blown back and begins breaking apart in its defeat. Reno and Rude are outside the fight as they witness Zirconiade explode, catching the rest of their allies with it in tragic sacrifice. As the game ends, Song appears before a Shinra inquiry board, as only himself, Reno, and Rude have survived. Rufus now steps in, objecting to the disbanding of the Turks, pointing out their loyalty in the form of ending the leaders of Avalanche and Verdot. Though to the side, Rufus does so after demanding their loyalty to him.
Exactly.
Song now lets his hair down, announcing a new age for the Turks going forward. As events pass, and it's now during the final act of Final Fantasy VII, when Meteor is falling, the Turks are helping evacuate the citizens of Midgar, but are struggling to keep up. At this time, Verdot, whose Song helped fake his and Elf's death, now appears with the rest of the missing Turks
so the rest of the Turks are there.
Fight,
basically, they're actually hiding in their hometowns
and are here to help complete the final mission of the Turks together.
There could be
Before Crisis,
a cool
Final Fantasy
side quest
has enjoyed the success of 1.6 million
you're meeting Turks
downloads.
in almost all the different locations. That could be neat. I'd be down for that. Like, you meet the katana guy in Gungaga, or the shotgun lady in Medial. That'd be cool. They don't have to be big major story elements, but they'd be cool. It'd be a cool cool side element. Anyway, let's say thank you again to Oni Black Mage for actually being the person to actually sit down and go through and say all that stuff and save my throat. Give him a subscribe, like his videos. He does it for a lot of different RPGs and stuff like that, but you gotta really appreciate it for these ones that are just plain gone, right? Okay, next, let's try out this, next up, I'm kind of going chronologically here, if you understand. So, before Crisis, so, we got the main game done. Crisis Core, Before Crisis are pretty cool stuff. The only other thing that happens before Final Fantasy VII, content-wise, is, of course, the Last Order short. And like I said, we have this this fanned English dub that sounded pretty decent. And I feel like this is the only, like, reasonable way that we can actually ingest this and stuff like that, because they actually did the audio is different. It's a dub over. So let's give this a shot. This was done by Madhouse. Sorry, Madhouse did this. Beyond Midgard, it must be the fan dub group or something. But yeah, basically some cool animation and good stuff, but the story elements that are different from what you've seen in Crisis Core or FF7,
Oops.
Just ignore them. Just ignore them.
My bad. I want to let you rest, but it seems we don't have time for that.
Basically, we get to watch Zack be a badass.
The military has made contact.
Obviously, this has been like AI
That's
upscaled or something.
The Turks will continue to the engagement.
But it is what it is.
Everyone else, back to the base. About the location of the target.
Like, again, this is dead media, so like the highest resolution you can probably get it is like 480i or something stupid like that. I just like Zach, so if we get to see a little bit more of him, why not?
Like an average soldier can take me on. Right?
There they are! Open fire!
Damn, they're persistent. Like that'll hit me.
72 hours ago, we at the Executive Department Investigation Section, also known as the Turks, received a mission to capture samples that were on the run from a Shinra facility. The escaping samples, it seems, are two adult males.
Hey!
One of them is a combat expert who was formerly a soldier first class.
Look at all the peeps. You know what's funny here, though? Is this got made before Crisis Core. So,
Because of what
Sisney
happened 5 years ago,
isn't like a
the
unique
targets
character.
of this
I don't
mission
think
are
they show
somewhat
her
related to me.
in this at all. They show the starting Turks.
If that hadn't happened,
Because this came
5
out
years
maybe
ago,
as the beginning of Before
their
Crisis coming out,
lives would
before they
never
even
have been this
added
crazy.
Shuriken and Katana.
If it weren't for that man, the strongest soldier. Some of us even went so far as to call him a hero. Sephiroth.
My Roth IRA. Last order. Does this look like Law? Hold on. Hold the fucking phone. Is this Law and Order font? Right here? Is Order written like Law and Order font? Hold on. Look at the R. Look how the R is written. It absolutely fucking... The way the D hangs over on the left. The short E. The shortened E. And the undertip. Holy fuck. What? My eyes are here. My eyes are here. Even the L. Wow. That's so fucking funny. That is so fucking funny. Nibelheim. Looks great.
Why are you guys? What have we done?
What have we done to the this? Oh no, I'm dead. And now, well, at least I got cremated for free.
Mother, I'm coming to you now.
Mother.
Father! Where are you? If you're there, please answer me. Father!
Boy.
It's Master
This
Sunka. Master!
They shouldn't have upscaled it to 4K if it fucked it up this
get
bad.
going! It's too dangerous here!
What the hell is going on? Why is this happening?
It was
Oh,
Sephiroth.
Zangan.
He lost his damn mind.
Huh? Sephiroth? Why would Sephiroth do this? Master, have you seen my father? I can't find him.
Up in Mount Nibble towards the Mako reactor.
Don't go! Why is Tifa's father there to begin with?
Hey, stay with me.
I've never
I'll get you some
understood
help.
why Tifa's dad was up to
Tifa, don't!
in
You'll
the
die if you
actual
try to stop him!
Mako reactor.
Tifa!
It was so dangerous that they needed an escort to get there. How did he get there?
Confirmed. Currently at point 137. I repeat, currently at point 137.
Jeez, making a big fuss over just the two of us. Well then, what to do, what to do.
Alright, show me some cool anime. Beat rush. Yeah, that's why we're watching this, for this kind of shit.
Watch the line of fire! Engage him in close combat!
There's not a lot of times where you see just how physically outmatched these guys are by a soldier, right?
Can we really beat a soldier? After him!
To think he'd abandon his friend.
First class soldier, Zack.
Yo, what's up?
Hey, old man!
Zack! Please tell me you haven't lost your sanity too.
Who can stay sane in this situation? Sephiroth did this, right?
We've always held him up as a war hero. Turns out he's just a bloodthirsty monster.
How could he... What happened to you, Sephiroth?
Wait, have you seen Tifa?
Did something happen to Tifa?
She went up the mountain to try and help her father. But Sephiroth's up there too.
What?
I taught her how to fight, but she's out of her depth. Only a soldier can match up to Sephiroth.
I'm not an ordinary soldier.
Hmm?
I'm a soldier. First class. You, go and help the old man.
Yes, sir. I'll head up there as soon as I can. Please, you must save Tifa.
Leave it to me.
Vroom, vroom. How you gonna deal with the motorcycles, huh? Oh, I'm probably just gonna do some cool shit. Oh, a helicopter too, huh?
The Turks, eh?
Target sighted. All orders are to retrieve the targets. Dead or alive.
Try your best to catch him alive.
Understood.
Surrender quietly. If you do, we will assure both your lives.
Damn Turks, showing up out of nowhere, doing as they please.
Screw 'em. We'll secure him ourselves.
Now everyone's doing whatever they want. I don't need an assurance on my life. What I want is freedom!
And to be a hero.
What?
Father! Where are you? Father!
Dum dum dum.
Father!
Oh, he's outside in this.
Father! Hang in there, Father.
What were you doing outside the Mako reactor? Being in it was weird.
Father!
Just standing outside of it's even weirder.
Run away and live.
Hey, hang in there, Father.
You were my sparring partner, Dad. Yeah, Sephiroth just leaving fucking Masamune outside the reactor is actually kind of crazy.
This to you, right?
I mean, he just slaughtered a village. That's pretty crazy too, but...
Sephiroth. Soldier. Shinra. Reactors. I hate them! I hate them all!
Mother, I'm coming. Boy, I sure hope Sephiroth doesn't find his freak experimental mom. We better put her fucking nameplate over the place we send him.
Sephiroth! How could you do this to everyone?
I wonder if she would have killed him if she would have not said anything. Like, she probably would have got the hit, right? If she hadn't announced it.
You promised you'd come and save me. Cloud.
Damn it! It's stuck!
Quit your yapping and get it out already!
We're trying, sir!
The sword's
The
stuck.
target has acquired a bite. The mission is now a lot harder than it originally was.
Huh? You're Zack!
Hey, sorry to keep you waiting. Let's go, Cloud. Hey, don't be angry. There's no way I'd ever leave my friend behind.
Bros, man.
Those stupid
Bros.
MPs just had to give him a bike.
See you later!
Lost sight of the targets. Last seen entering the subway tunnels.
I do kind of wish they made
deeper into Midgar, huh?
the tracking from the
I
Turks
see.
near the end of Crisis Core a bit more
Cordon off Midgar.
Yes, sir.
consistent, right? It seems like they just have 3 cutscenes back to back of
Tifa.
him talking to Cisne.
Tifa!
And that's
Tifa!
it.
Tifa!
Diva, 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 Diva. Zack.
Did Sephiroth do this to you, Tifa?
Yes. You guys came to our village just for an investigation, right? I volunteered to be your guide here. And why did my father
Tifa.
hate it? Shinra, Soldier, and all of you. I hate you all.
I'm sorry, Tifa. I won't ask you to forgive me. However, let me put an end to this.
Alright, let's get a boy! God, he's so angry looking.
Mother,
Mother!
let's take this planet back
He's going,
together.
man, he's going.
I have an idea.
I think the boy in the fan dubber here is
Why don't
channeling
we
some
go to the
Virgil.
Promised Land. Mother,
Sephiroth! Why did you kill the villagers? Why did you hurt Tifa? Answer me, Sephiroth!
Mother, they've come again. Mother was supposed to be the ruler of this planet, with her superior power, knowledge, and magic. But those fools, those worthless creatures, stole this planet away from you.
Rip it
Don't
off!
despair. Come with me. We finally meet. Mother.
They don't show any boobs.
Sephiroth! What the
No
hell
alien
happened to
boobs.
you?
You traitor.
Sephiroth! I trusted you!
Oh boy, this looks bad.
No! You're not the Sephiroth I once knew!
I am the chosen one. I exist to become this planet's ruler. In order to return this planet from you fools to the hands of the Cedra, I was born. For Mother's sake.
No funny slide down the staircase for Zack.
It's all right now, Mother. Who are you?
Return my mother, Tifa, and my village! I respected you, admired you, but I...
You bastard.
Say something cool, Cloud. She won't respect you if you don't say something cool right now.
Cloud. So you came for me. You kept our promise. You came and saved me.
Sorry. I was a bit late getting to you.
It's alright.
She should be way worse off than this. She shouldn't even barely recognize him. It's the only way the plot even fucking works.
Mother.
He sure didn't look like he thought she was on death's door with that expression.
How dare you?
Cloud. Finish him off.
By the likes of you.
Sephiroth!
You don't think it's that easy? By a lowly human like you. You really thought you could defeat me? Know your place.
My family. In my hometown. You've done it all right, and I will never forgive you!
This isn't possible. Who the hell are you?
Who the hell are you?
Mother, let's go to the promised land
this
together.
Right here, everything here. No, this is literally this shit is non-canon as fuck. Sephiroth Cloud used his fucking bare hands in adrenaline and tossed that fucker into a pit, and he fucking died. And every other version of the story understands it's important for that to be exactly how it goes. But for some reason this didn't, and this is why this thing gets a shit ton of flack, and probably why they don't actually put it in anything anymore. I mean, the animation's cool and stuff, but it gets some critical shit wrong. Like
this one.
What the
Take
hell
him
were
down
you
to
thinking?
Shinra Mansion's basement. Sephiroth, you've surely done it this time. Oh, it's you. Is Mr. Veld doing well?
Yeah.
I see. How's the disposal of the village going?
We already started working on it. But do we really have to do all that?
You're still young. Your opinion and such doesn't matter at all. Hurry up with the disposal. Oh, just a second. This one finished here. Interesting. Very interesting. I can use him as a new sample.
You know what? You know what actually does make this the worst part about that change?
I know. I will
Cloud
be there right away.
doubts his ability
Will
to
we
have
take
even
freedom
survived.
away from them?
He says it
again?
himself. There's no way he could have beat him. And because there's so much insecurity about the truth, he's denying himself. He can't imagine it being within himself to win. But once he actually looks at his own
boss has that
past and
serious
truth,
look on his face.
it was
Didn't
within
we just
the
rescue
entire
them 5 years ago? Now we
and
gotta
this fucks
capture
that
them.
over.
Well,
Hey, look, all these
that's
before
fate.
Crisis starts.
Fate. Didn't think
All
fate
these,
was this cool.
I sympathize
Day
for
one,
them.
before
Damn,
Crisis
you guys
starts,
sure are
not the
nice.
later ones.
Nice or not, it's gotta be done. Remember, we're professionals.
Let's go.
Yes, sir.
You heard the boss. Hey, newbie,
Cool, they have
hurry
like
up,
an
will
inch of
ya?
personality.
I'm coming.
Because they're from a flip phone game. We at the end here? Yeah.
Hey, what are you doing once we reach Midgar? Well, first of all, we need to make some money. Hey, Pops! You know any businesses I'll be able to do?
Huh? Do whatever you want.
Wait,
Try your hand at everything.
are you hearing this? Are you hearing the music in the background?
thing while
Listen.
you're still young. Go through many hardships while you still got that youthful vitality and find your purpose.
Everything he says. Not much of a help, huh? Oh yeah, that's right. I have a lot of knowledge and skills that other people don't.
Do you recognize this
right?
music?
All right, made up my mind.
Do you recognize this music? I'll tell you what it's missing. It's missing lyrics.
Troublesome
But do you
things,
recognize
dangerous
it?
things. Heck, I can do anything depending on the reward. I'm gonna be rich.
I'm losing my fucking mind.
So,
this
Cloud,
is complete. I
what
did
are
not
you
notice
going
this
to do?
before.
I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna
I'm
abandon
freaking the fuck
you.
out. How
We're
is
friends,
this defunct,
right? You and
non-canon,
I,
never used
mercenaries.
anime?
What do you think, Cloud?
The targets have passed
This
point 12. They're about to enter firing range.
In sniper range? Go for it.
But the Turks said to wait for their arrival.
Screw the Turks, we can handle this. Just fire it.
Hold on. I just realized me saying, do you guys recognize this? If you were only seeing Final Fantasy
we're
7
not
for stuff
there
I've
yet?
done so far,
This
you
piece
wouldn't.
of junk.
But if you like Final Fantasy 7 stuff in
Take
general,
over!
you absolutely would hear that music. Okay, we're on the credits.
Get out of here!
Hold on. Go back to scenario writer Kazuhige Nojima. What did he write? He wrote that song. He wrote the lyrics for that song. The lyrics for the song Hollow. This song, Hollow, it's not in the wiki. I just noticed something that isn't even recorded in the wiki. This song is the ending theme for Remake. How is this not in the wiki? Hold on, I'll prove it. Get to the main.
こういうクラウドが
Time after time, and there you'd be.
それはもう間違いなく声質ですよね。声質と圧倒的なレンジの広さ。うわ、どこまでこの人高いところ。
まあ今回ファイナルの時点でもう信じられないことではあったんですけど、
手に描いてるわけですね。
やっぱりその音楽に求めているまあ演じ形に作っていくものなんだなというのを彼と一緒に働いて思いましたね。その
Go back to this. Go back to when he's talking at the beginning here.
Oh yeah, that's right. I have a lot of knowledge and skills that other people don't, right? All right, made up my mind.
Hold on. Let me pull up the lyrics. Let's pull up the lyrics. Time after time. Where did you go? I would be lost. Can you make a witty? How do you make a wiki submission? Oh, I have to. It'd be a bunch of stuff. Well, I'm just gonna point out that I noticed this before it was in the wiki. Okay. Hold on. Hold on.
Drifting
I can't believe this fucking song.
And everything while you're still young. Are you even listening?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I can't
I
fucking
have a
believe.
lot of knowledge and skills that other people don't.
I'm gonna
right?
clip this shit.
All right, made up my mind. I'll just do everything.
Of all the things I was expecting, you wanted to learn something new.
Word I said.
Troublesome things, dangerous.
So, yeah, if you're curious of the lyrics of that song are, they're not crazy or anything, but, was it all a dream? Will I never know? Foolish and blind to everything. Had I realized, had I thought it through? Shine bright. That's so crazy. That song is a small instrumental that plays for, like, what, a minute? In this defunct animation, reappears. Hold on. When did Lost Order come out? Seriously, when did Lost Order come out? Last Order came out in 2005. In 2005, they play an instrumental version of this song written by the scenario writer. And then Remake came out, what, 21? So 15, 16 years later, lyrics get added to it, and it's made the ending theme for Remake. And if you played Remake and you've seen its ending, man. Okay, I'm sorry. It's just
things. Heck, I can.
It's just weird. It's just crazy. That's just crazy to me. Anyway, that's Last Order. Shit. Ah, man. The wiki thinks the song was created for Remake. That's crazy. I can't get over that. The most eat up everything that can find people that edit for a wiki miss that. That's crazy. All right. So now let's get to the books. This guy did a nice thing. I'm not sure if the pace is going to be what we need, but let's just give it a shot.
Anyone watching this video, whether you've been following the Final Fantasy compilation watch-along, or you just found this video
he was doing a thing like this 3 years ago.
In case you did just
That's
find
cool.
it randomly,
For Remake,
this video
apparently.
is part of a live streaming series I've been doing where we watch through the entire story of
Bill
Final Fantasy
Games.
VII and all of its canon material. However,
So,
quite a bit of the
this-
story of what
Well-
happens after the original game is told through written
That's what
stories,
does he do?
and we didn't really
Does some
have a way
Kingdom
to go
Hearts
through those on
stuff,
stream,
Undertale
so I figured I would
stuff.
make a video summarizing them. So, here's how we're
Yeah,
going to do
he's
this.
about this kind of stuff.
I'm following a watch guide that I made that includes all the games, written stories, and the movie Advent Children. There's a link to it in the description
He's
if
got
you're
a
interested.
compilation guide.
In
Let's
it,
take a
you'll see
look.
that I recommended to wait to read some of the written stories until after watching Advent Children.
Well, that's-
So I'll
okay,
be
he's
doing it in
he's
that
thinking
order, and
complete
I'll make sure to say
chronological
when I
order.
would recommend
Let's-
watching the movie
let's-
for those
let's
of you
not
who
worry about
haven't
that. You're
yet.
not skipping chapters
There are
in
links
a
to
book.
all of these stories in that guide.
That's a
and
little
I
bit too
really think
neurotic.
you should go read them yourself if you have the time, because they are good reads, and
They
then
are.
maybe you can
I've got
come
them
back
all
to this
beside
video
me.
to
They're
see
like
which stuff I
15
explain
bucks on
further,
Amazon.
because some
Get
small
the
details
books.
you might
Read
not
'em.
notice at first are actually important. Also, I'm basing all of my explanations on fan translations by thelifestream.net because
we're jumping.
I should note that of all these stories, Maiden's canonicity is definitely the most questionable.
This is the one that isn't
but it's
written
still
by-
referenced in a lot of theories and
by
stuff,
him.
so I'll talk about it as if it is canon.
Okay.
The story starts right after Aerith's death. As her
So this is
spirit
an
energy
integral,
drifts back
basically.
into the life stream, Aerith marvels at the beauty of the life all around her. She's also surprised that she's able to retain her consciousness after death, instead of fully merging with the life stream, and at first wonders if it's because she's a Cetra, then figures that it's because there's still something for her to do. The planet actually confirms this to her. The book very interestingly describes this as the whispers of the planet.
They call it the Whispers. They call it the Whispers. That's funny. I completely forgot that. And yeah, the whole life stream existing outside of time, that idea is first introduced here. Which is why a lot of the shit that I've hinted at thinking about Ever Crisis comes into play. And about possibly us having multiple Sephiroths that are being dealt with. And by the time of remake, the young Sephiroth being a separate character from the one that integrated into the live stream. Anyway.
She misses the people she left behind, and is hurt by the knowledge of the sadness her death must have caused them. She's especially sad about leaving Cloud behind. The story claims that she loved him much more than her first love, although it's small details like that where we have to keep in mind that this might not be 100% canon, and also that it came out even before Crisis Core, so yeah, take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. Even more than her own love for him, though, she's worried about his shattering psyche. But she knows she has no time to dwell on these things, because she senses Sephiroth in the livestream. She figured out his plan before she died, and now she knows she has to do something about it. As Aerith wanders through the livestream, her thoughts about her old friends echo around her, and are recognized by a remnant of a person's memory that forces itself to regain consciousness, Jessie. As the two converse, Biggs and Wedge recognize some of their shared memories and come to themselves as well. The three of them haven't been able to completely pass on in peace because they regret the lives that they took while trying to save the planet. Interestingly, Wedge mentions that it was the old Avalanche, a much more extreme group than theirs, that came up with that plan to blow up the reactors and everything. Not super important, but a cool Before Crisis reference nonetheless. Anyway, Aerith helps them to look past their
And
regrets
yet, in
and to see the
Remake,
good that
they
they
talk
did
about
at times
how
like when they
Barrett's
tried to
group
stop the
is
Sector
labeled the
7
too
plate from
extreme
falling.
group.
Then she leaves them to
But of
decide for
course,
themselves
the
whether they were
labeling
good
doesn't
people
match
or
the
not.
actual behavior of the main branch. that you
Sometime
do
later,
see,
Aerith's
where they're
thoughts
in
of
full
Marlene
Millspike
help the
gear.
passing consciousness of Dyne reform. Dyne is, well, still his super depressed and cynical self, except now he thinks that he's not worthy of even being accepted into the life stream by the planet. Aerith first rebukes him for his cowardice while he was alive, then does her best to ease his guilt. She assures him that if he can allow himself to start over, the planet will accept him, and that Marlene will join him and his wife there someday. Finally, Dyne apologizes and fades back into the life stream. The next distinct soul Aerith comes across is a very distinct one, in the sense that it doesn't merge with the rest of the Mako energy around it, but rather distorts the flow of the energy, as if his spirit energy is rotten. Remember that idea, we'll come back to it later in the video. This is the soul of President Shinra, still as self-centered and stuck up as ever. They
Still
throw
got
some
the
sass
golden
at each
gun.
other, and Aerith basically decides that his soul isn't savable. Then, suddenly, Shinra gets violently thrown into the Sea of Mako by a strange wave. Not a current in the lifestream, but something else. Sephiroth. Stopping Holy's power from working, waiting for when
Sephiroth
Meteor would
eating
fall,
good.
and he would be able to become
Shinra's
one
got a
with
lot
the
of meat on
planet.
them bones.
Aerith watches helplessly as Cloud falls into the lifestream from the northern crater and drifts to Mideel. Interestingly, even the lifestream is blocked off from the northern crater in some way. Or, kind of, it says that energy is gathering there to heal the planet's wound, but also Aerith can't get there? It's confusing, but the point is that Aerith can't go there to free Holy herself. Anyway, as Aerith worries about Cloud's identity crisis and thinks of her memories with him and how he felt so familiar to her from the moment she met him, another soul recognizes her. The soul of an old friend, Zack. They take a moment to catch up on a whole bunch, including Cloud's real backstory. The two of them conclude that there's nothing that they can do to help Cloud at the moment, but Tifa may be able to do something. When Cloud and Tifa fall into the lifestream at Mideel, Aerith actually takes Tifa's consciousness and guides it into Cloud's heart,
So that whole
entrusting Tifa
that
with
black
the task
screen
that
where
she would
like
have rather
everything
done
turns
herself.
red and screams.
She and Zack have a
It's
friendly
supposed to be an
conversation,
explanation about how
then he
Tifa
allows
gets out of
himself
that
to be absorbed
and
back
gets
into
over
the
to Cloud.
lifestream, although it does note that he believes his role is not yet over. Unfortunately, the next soul Aerith meets goes from the best character in this universe to the worst. Yep, Hojo has just been killed by Cloud and the team, and now he's basically bragging to Aerith about how awesome he is because of injecting Genova cells into himself, and how much better he is than Professor Gast, Aerith's dad. Then he offers his energy to Sephiroth and disappears into the Sea of Mako the same way that President Shinra did. Now the story gets to the point where it begins to give us a much-needed explanation of what happened at the end of the original game. Again, take it with a bit of a grain of salt, but this is the best we've got at the moment. After Sephiroth's body is destroyed, his consciousness retreats. The Genova cells inside Cloud resonate with Sephiroth's consciousness and allow him to let his own consciousness separate from his body and enter the Sea of Mako. So the final confrontation between Cloud and Sephiroth is actually their consciousnesses fighting in the lifestream. As soon as Cloud defeats Sephiroth, Holy activates. Aerith then guides Cloud's consciousness back into his body, as we saw in the game with her hand reaching out to him. But it's already too late for Holy. Meteor is already too close to the planet, and Holy only increased the destructive potential Meteor was about to unleash on the world. Without hesitation, Aerith calls out to all the souls in the lifestream. The wills of Biggs, Wedge,
Everybody,
Jesse, Dyne, Zack, and the
your
planet
hands in
itself
the air.
combine
Save the
to
planet.
summon the
Catch
energy
the
of the
volleyball.
lifestream and push Meteor back into the sky, just enough for Holy's power to take effect. Or I guess a slightly more canon story says that it's the lifestream itself that destroys Meteor. I guess it doesn't really matter. Either way, Meteor is destroyed, and the planet's crisis is averted. The story ends with these words. And so, the records of life that the planet created, talking about the memories in the lifestream, continued into the birth of a new era. And onto a new era we go indeed, because now we begin going through everything that happens after the original game. Most of this is told through a collection of short stories called On the Way to a Smile,
Very good.
These are almost certainly canon, by the way.
Oh,
Each story is centered
100%
on a specific character and takes place over a 2-year period leading up to Advent Children. Well, most of them are. The one that's a little different we'll save until after the Advent Children spoiler warning, but the rest actually gives some, in my opinion, much needed build up to the movie.
Only see, I actually looked ahead to see why he was saying this, because I've read this too. And I'm like, no, it's not. And the only thing is that there is a short for that one, and its framing device is talking about the events of that thing after Advent Children, like characters talking about it in the past tense. That doesn't make it a spoiler. That doesn't mean it takes place at, that doesn't mean you talk, I don't think that means you should talk about it afterwards. But you know what? Maybe we'll just watch it later. Don't tell anybody. Maybe we'll just watch it later, and then we can make that decision ourselves.
The Case of Tifa, or Episode Tifa. They all could be called either. The Case of Tifa starts, well, it actually starts with a little bit of a flash forward, but everything in it gets covered later, so we'll skip it for now. But it technically starts right after the original game ends. As Tifa reminisces about everything that led up to this point, she notices Cloud smiling, something she hadn't seen him do often. They both realize that their lives can start anew now, and promise to help each other not mess it up. The first thing the group does is go back to the Forgotten City so they can properly grieve Aerith's death. Then, just like that, each of them go their separate ways. Tifa, Cloud, and Barrett travel together. They first go to Coral, then to Nibelheim, but they all regret going back to their hometowns. They need to move on, not look back. They then go to Calm to see Marlene and Elmira. A lot of people had taken refuge there, and there seems to be some sort of strange disease going around. The three of them take Marlene and go back to Midgar to try and rebuild some semblance of a normal life. Despite Tifa wanting to move on and forget the past, Barrett suggests that building a new bar might do some good for the people. Marlene even suggests that they name it Seventh Heaven again, because her memories of the old bar are all pleasant memories of home. This helps Tifa see that she can't erase her past. She has to acknowledge it and move on. When the bar opens, all four of them, even Marlene, do their part to help out, Cloud doing his best to talk to customers when Tifa wants him to.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, by the way, the story doesn't even mention this, but this is all happening in a settlement that's being built just outside of Midgar from the scraps left behind from the destruction caused by Meteor and the Lifestream, stretching east from the road on the border of Sectors 3 and 4. This town would eventually come to be called Edge. Anyway, a week after the bar opens, Barrett decides to leave on a journey to settle his past, something he says that Tifa and Cloud could do there in Midgar, but he couldn't. He leaves Marlene with the two of them, and she seems oddly content with the situation, even saying that she'll take care of them. Barrett even tells her to keep the family together, Marlene, Tifa, and Cloud. Then, just like that, Barrett leaves. Several months later, Cloud comes back from gathering supplies on a new motorcycle, so I guess his motion sickness is just gone now because, well, you'll see
how
in
motion sickness works.
He starts getting any engineers he can find to mod the bike a whole bunch too.
Drives a car gets
the story
motion
doesn't say this,
sick.
but he also gets a new sword sometime before Advent Children that has definitely been heavily modded and
because
customized
you're
as well.
moving at a pace that your eyes or brain are not matching.
I'm guessing because he
when
doesn't
you're driving,
feel
you
worthy
almost
of it
always
after
do.
finding out that, well, it wasn't even originally his. Anyway, he uses his new motorcycle to be able to go further and get more supplies for the bar. After a while, the people he interacts with while picking up supplies start to offer to pay him to make long-distance deliveries for them. Tifa encourages him to turn that into a real business. And so, the Strike
This is the first Stranding type spin-off.
They take requests at the bar, and Tifa and Marlene take calls for the service from there as well. The service is in high demand around the world. Unfortunately, that means that Cloud is almost never home. Marlene begins to notice that Cloud is even less sociable than usual, and Tifa figures it's because traveling around the world has forced Cloud to interact with his past, specifically the painful memory of Aerith's death. Tifa tries to talk to him when she has the chance, wanting him to share his problems with her, but Cloud shuts her out. It's almost as if he's going through an emotional relapse of his character development in the original game because of his lingering guilt over Aerith's death. Not long after that, Tifa gets a phone call from Cloud. Or it's from Cloud's cell phone, but on the other end is not Cloud, but a young boy. He seemed distressed and in pain.
No.
Soon after, Cloud finds him collapsed on the ground and picks up the phone, telling Tifa that it looks like the boy has geostigma,
maybe he is right then.
the same disease that was
Maybe
going
the
around in
Denzel
Calm
stuff.
right after Meteor.
No, okay, it's a mix of
There's
Tifa's
still
story
not
and
much known
Denzel's
about the disease,
that you see in the
besides that it
short.
causes a black liquid of sorts to appear on the skin. There's no cure so far either, and it seems to kill almost everyone who contracts it, but the rate at which it does so is very inconsistent. Tifa's worried at first about the idea of taking the boy to the bar because of rumors that geostigma could be contagious, but Cloud reassures her that it's most likely not, and Tifa senses that he really wants to take the kid home, so she approves. Tifa wonders why Cloud wanted to bring him there instead of to a shelter or something, but then hears Cloud mutter, "He came to my place." Tifa doesn't know what he could mean by that. The boy eventually tells him that his name is Denzel. He's 8 years old, and his parents died in the Sector 7 plate incident. This makes Tifa feel like his coming here was meant to happen, as a sort of way to atone for the lives Avalanche took, and decides to welcome him into their little family. Whenever he feels well enough, he helps clean and do other jobs around the bar, as well as helping his hero Cloud with his delivery service however he can. This isn't important to the story, but there's this super cute scene where Denzel and Marlene help Cloud plan out delivery routes and sort receipts, and it says that Denzel would help Marlene with words she didn't know, just like an older brother would, and that Denzel would have to ask Cloud for help with words that even he couldn't read. I just felt like mentioning that. After a little while,
It is.
or
You get a very
actually
nice
potentially
family
almost 2
scene out of
years, it's unclear.
that
Tifa
book in
confronts
Advent- in
Cloud
some of
about what he
Adventure.
meant by my place back when he first brought Denzel to the bar, and Cloud reluctantly reveals that he had been talking about Aerith's church, where he had been spending a lot of time without Tifa knowing. He thought Aerith had led Denzel to him. But Tifa corrects him. "You're wrong. Aerith brought Denzel to us. Tifa then sees Cloud smile for the first time in 2 years. But just days later, Cloud leaves again, leaving Tifa to wonder whether the future she saw in that smile was just her imagination.
And so the title of the
case
book.
of Barrett picks up right after Barrett leaves Seventh Heaven. Well, actually, it's like 6 months later, during which time he basically wanders around the world trying to figure out what to do with his life.
Basically the reverse of what he's doing before, of what he does before Final Fantasy VII.
Beginning to adjust to life with Geostigma. He also sees
There's
that
a lot
many
of stories
people
of the
look at his gun
characters
arm
sort of
and see him as a
regressing
monster.
from their character development
Eventually,
and needing,
Barrett goes
like,
to see the person
they're
that had
hitting
originally
challenges
made the adapter
now that they're
allowed
out
him
of
to
an
connect
end-of-the-world
prosthetics and weapons to his arm stump.
adrenaline-rush-fueled battle.
The Livestream.net
And they have to
translates his
actually
name as
live
Old Man
with their
Sakaki,
decisions.
But keep in mind that any name that hasn't been officially translated could be wrong.
Nope, that name's correct.
Barrett
He's
asks
in Rebirth.
Sakaki to make a normal prosthetic hand for him. In the week
Also,
or so
it gets
that
used
takes
in
the
Ever
old man to
Crisis
make
during Barrett's
Barrett continues
backstory
contemplating
chapter
what
they
his life
released
is
recently.
going to look like going forward. Then he witnesses a young girl die of geostigma. Her father mourns the fact that they don't have an airship that could have flown them to Midgar for treatment. Even though Barrett knows full well that effective treatment couldn't even be found in Midgar, he heads over to Rocket Town. The first person he meets there is none other than Shara, who Barrett notices has the stigma. Then he finds Sid, who's working on building a new airship, one that's very similar to the Highwind but doesn't use Mako power. The two of them catch up. Barrett tells Sid what had been going on with Cloud and Tifa.
It
Sid
runs
mentions
on
that
oil,
Red 13
Cloud.
stopped by somewhat frequently, that he'd heard
Finally,
Yuffie is teaching
we can
more
save
kids
the
in
planet
Wutai
with
how
the
to fight,
power of
and that
oil.
he unsurprisingly hadn't heard from Vincent at all. And I guess Ketchi just isn't even worth mentioning. I mean, being a remote-controlled robot and all. Barrett then asks Sid if he can help build the airship, even suggesting that they could use Mako power if it meant the possibility of saving lives. Sid agrees about using Mako, but he tells Barrett that no one wants to help operate the reactors after seeing firsthand what the Livestream could do when it vaporized Meteor, or pushed it back into the sky.
That
or
put the fear of God in
Some
you,
people
wouldn't
even
it?
blame the Livestream for the existence of Geostigma. They're scared of angering the planet. Besides that, apparently that incident had altered the flow of the Livestream, so the reactors would no longer work anyway. Sid says they had been working on digging up old technology involving drilling oil and turning it into fuel, tech that hadn't been used since the discovery of Mako power. They've been able to make a good enough fuel from the oil they gathered so far, but haven't been able to make a working engine for the airship yet. Also, Sid doesn't say it specifically, but Barrett can tell that he's worried about Shara's geostigma. Barrett offers to help Sid in whatever way he can. Before going off to scout for more oil fields, he returns to Old Man Sakaki to tell him that he's changed his mind about the prosthetic hand. He needs to keep fighting. So Sakaki gives him a better one that he had actually made for Barrett years earlier that actually had working fingers and could transform into a gun. Barrett promises himself to use it to write to Marlene.
What a dick. He didn't give him that.
The case of Yuffie starts after Meteorfall in the Forgotten City, as the group is about to go their separate ways. Yuffie protests how sudden their departure is, but the others assure her that it's just because they know they'll get to see each other again. But before they all leave, they realize they have to figure out what to do with their materia. Yuffie asks if she can have at least half of it, assuring them that it would be used to restore Wutai. The others consider it because of the great help she's been to them, but they're also not sure because the materia could also be a great help in restoring Midgar. In the end, Cloud decides to be the tricky one for once, offering to give Yuffie all the materia if he can keep it in safe custody. Yuffie isn't that dumb though, but once Cloud says that she can contact him if she decides that Wutai really needs the materia, she reluctantly agrees. Cloud lets her take some healing materia though, and they part ways. Yuffie is expecting a welcoming party when she gets back to Wutai, but she finds that the town had basically heard a whole bunch of the details about what had happened, except for the fact that she had been involved at all. She quickly gets over her disappointment and starts helping to rebuild the damage caused by the Livestream. She helps turn a building into a hospital as well, and uses her healing materia to help a lot of people. Then that night, she wakes up to the sound of a nail being hammered into the door of her room.
What's this?
She finds out that her dad had locked her in there after hearing that Yuffie had done something she hadn't told him, but he doesn't mention what that thing is, and Yuffie has no idea what it could possibly be. Not long after, she overhears that someone in the town was sick, and that people think Yuffie had brought
Happening
the
all
disease
over the
with her
place.
from Midgar. The next morning, a worried voice speaks to her through the wall, a childhood friend of Yuffie's named Yuri, It's his mother who got sick. He describes the black goop that's been coming out of her ears and the pain that she's in. He doesn't think that it's Yuffie's fault though, so he frees her, and they run away together. Yuri then explains everything they know about the disease, which is basically nothing except that there are reports of it in Midgar and that it began to spread in Wutai soon after the first person caught it. They then resolve to try to clear Yuffie's name and save Wutai by finding a cure. They start their search in some materia caves south of Wutai, a place where Shinra had actually been planning to build a Mako reactor, and that's actually what started the war between Shinra and Wutai.
Makes sense.
The two of them wonder whether there's any materia capable of healing the disease, and Yuffie actually calls Cloud and Tifa on the phone to ask them, but they don't know either. After a while, they give up on the cave, but at the cave's exit, they end up having to fight a monster that shoots an exploding fireball before they're able to kill it. The fireball misses, but something strange happens to the spot where it hits the ground. Liquid begins to flow out of it, but it's not water. It almost seems evil.
Black
The
sludge.
two of them run as fast as they can out of the cave as the liquid bursts out of the hole at an alarmingly fast rate. Outside the cave, Yuffie notices that the liquid has slowed down somewhat, and that it's black. She also sees that Yuri has collapsed, and that a similar black liquid is coming out of his mouth. She tries to lift him to his feet, but is unable. Luckily, at that moment, who should turn up but Nanaki, who has just begun a journey to see the world. He carries Yuri on his back a ways, heading back in the direction of Wutai.
How did Nanaki
Once
get to
Yuri
Wutai?
recovers a little, he confesses that he may have been the one to bring the disease
It's
to
an
Wutai.
island.
Apparently, his mother had gotten sick with something other
guess
than
he could
the
just
quote-unquote
hitch a ride on a boat.
Midgar disease, aka geostigma, before Meteor had even appeared in the sky. Yuri had gone to Midgar to see if Shinra could help her, but amid the chaos caused by Meteor's appearance, Shinra wouldn't listen to him. He ended up still being in Midgar when the life stream burst out of the planet, and saw the beginnings of the geostigma problem there. At this point, it's been 2 days since Yuffie and Yuri left Wutai. Since then, a hut has been built outside of town to house the people with the disease, and Yuri joins his mother and several others inside. After 2 weeks, Yuffie's dad and the others have realized that the stigma most likely isn't actually contagious, and he apologizes for how he treated Yuffie. This doesn't ease Yuffie at all, though.
Way
at
to
this
be in
point, she just wants to find a
Go
cure.
right back to being a dick.
She had asked Nanaki to leave and travel the world in search of more
Like,
information about the disease.
Remember how
Yuri
the
then
whole
approaches
thing
her with
going
an
on where
observation that everyone here who had
Yuffie's
the
dad is
disease
kind of a dick,
had at one
and Yuffie's a
point before
dick,
contracting
and so they're
it
just being a
thought
dick
they
to
were
each
going to
other.
die.
And the
Yuri
resolution
didn't
of
get it
her
until some of
side
the
plot
black
is
water had
they
splashed
learned
on
that,
him.
hey,
He
we
thought it
can
was
be
going to
dicks
kill them.
together instead of being
They
dicks
wonder if that
against each
strange
other.
black liquid might have anything to do with the spread
And then
of
on
the
the way to
disease, like
smile, she
maybe
gets in like,
contaminated
you're a
their water
disease
supply or
carrying
something.
vermin, you brought it
But
with
they
you,
have no
fuck
way
you,
of
daughter.
confirming or denying it. As more and more people get the disease, though,
Oh,
the
man,
more and more it
that's-
seems that Yuri's theory is correct. Of course, the initial worry that it was contagious
But-
led to people who had come in contact with the stigma to think
But I
that
mean,
they were
with
going
the
to
On
die,
the Way to the Smile
which often led to them
books,
actually
a lot of
contracting the
the
disease, which
books,
further
short stories,
propagated
I
the
mean.
rumors of it being contagious. Because of this, Yuffie starts
That's
teaching
a
the patients
lot of
and other
On
people
the Way to
who
the Smile,
try
though. It's
martial arts
characters
as an
having
attempt
some
to get
kind
their
of
minds on
reversion
something
of
other
their
than death.
progression.
Almost
From the
2
game,
years later,
because
Yuffie is still
circumstances
searching the
return
world
to a
for
normal
cure.
life, and they're no
Just
longer
outside of Coral,
heroes.
she
They're
spots
people
Sid's
just trying to
new
live out in the
airship out on
world.
a test run
They
and
have a
waves
bunch
it
of
down.
baggage
With him
they're
is
trying to deal
Nanaki,
with.
for reasons we'll get to later. They catch up for a bit. Sid offers her a ride on the airship, but she declines for obvious reasons. Then he departs again, but accidentally, or possibly not so accidentally, it's honestly not clear, leaves Nanaki behind. So Nanaki joins Yuffie in her search for materia that can cure geostigma, even though he believes there's a high
It's weird how
possibility
those two always
that
pair
none
off. I wonder
exists.
why.
The case of Nanaki. After departing from Cloud and the others,
pretty
Nanaki
fucking
goes
sad.
back to
His
Cosmo
story is
Canyon.
kind of sad.
He's proud that he was able to protect his home and the world, and he tells his petrified father that he now plans to peacefully travel the world, observing life and trying to understand it as much as he could.
Like, he's got
The
an
first thing he
actual
notices
real
after leaving is that the
existential
life
problem
stream
to
coming
deal
out of
with.
the Earth had
That isn't a
changed the
regression,
geography of
it's
places.
just
Then
life
he notices
for
a
him.
change within himself. A sudden, strange fear grips him, and he sees it almost like a black lump within his heart. The feeling is so mysterious and frightening that he runs back to Cosmo Canyon, but after some reassurance from the people there, the feeling goes away, and he leaves again. He actually decides to name this blackness Gilligan, a name which doesn't
He
mean
calls
anything
his
in particular,
fear Gilligan.
but in naming it, he hopes to better understand and control it. He plans to start his travels in Wutai and then make his way east.
This dog is afraid of Doobie Howser.
As he approaches Wutai, he sees Yuffie and her friend in need of help, and that whole encounter plays out as I talked about earlier.
Is that Don Knotts?
Even though he doesn't say anything about it out loud, Nanaki is actually angry at Yuri for allowing Yuffie to help him, even with the risk of Yuffie getting infected by the stigma. But he's also impressed with Yuffie's resolve to help her friend. While he's helping with the sick back in Wutai, one of the patients asks him why a sentient yet non-human creature like him even exists in the first place. He eventually decides that his purpose is to learn to understand humans so he can pass on his knowledge to future generations of humans, since his lifespan is way longer than theirs. Soon after Nanaki leaves Wutai, Gilligan suddenly resurfaces again. As he tries to understand his fear further, he starts to see the faces of the people of Cosmo Canyon and of Yuffie and the people of Wutai in his mind, and to fear their deaths. Then Gilligan disappears again as suddenly as it had come, but Nanaki is one step closer to understanding what this strange feeling really is. On his way to Midgar to further investigate the stigma, Nanaki finds a young boy being attacked by a Nebel bear at the edge of the forest.
Nebel bear. I was trying to remember
he saves
what
the boy by
things
distracting the bear, but the boy's father comes and shoots at it before Nanaki has the chance to take it down.
I don't think you even run into a bear enemy in Final Fantasy VII. Why couldn't they pick something that you could visualize?
He's not too keen on. But Nanaki recognizes the father as someone who would either kill him for money or lock him in a cage, so he runs away. He knows they probably aren't bad people, and they're just hunting because they need food, so he lets them be. Soon though, he comes across 2 Nebel bear cubs, offspring of the mother who had just been killed, and decides to protect them. He leads them away from where the hunters might find them. Before long, the cubs become attached to him, and he has no choice but to continue to take care of them. He names them Bazu and Rin, and teaches them to hunt and to stay away from humans who are trying to hunt them. He soon loses track of the time he had spent in the forest,
young to be
and
a
decides
dad.
that as a being that was a beast that could communicate with humans and had spent most of his life surrounded by humans,
remember, he's
it
like
would
a
be good for
teenager.
him
He's
to
like
learn
a
how
he's like
beasts
a
lived as
low
well,
teenager
so he
or
could see
something like
things from
that.
both perspectives.
Relative age-wise.
Gilligan appears several times during this time, and Nanaki soon realizes that this mysterious feeling is nothing more than a fear of losing the ones he loves, which now includes Bazu and Rin. Realizing this makes him fear his own fear much less, because he knows that he would accomplish nothing by dwelling on it. After the bear cubs have grown up a bit, Nanaki finds himself in a bit of a predicament when Bazu and Rin attack the same boy he had met in the forest before.
Oh boy.
At first, he resolves to stand by and let nature take its course. The stronger opponent will win. But in the end, he can't allow the bears to kill the boy. So he steps between them and leads the bears back into the forest. When he stops to observe what happens next, the boy's father approaches, the same as before. But this time, he's followed by none other than Elena, still in her Shinra Turks uniform. She seems to be on the hunt for Nebel bears, and calls someone on her phone to say that she's on the trail of one.
I forgot about this plot
This causes Nanaki to wonder if Shinra is still somehow active, and to wish he had paid a little more attention to what had been going on in the human world during his time in the forest.
For making a rare medicine.
Next morning, Nanaki wakes up to find the bears gone. He tracks them for a while, and while he's doing so, Gilligan flares up for the first time in a while. After a while, he finds a village outside the forest, where he sees Bazu and Rin dead, killed by the humans. His fear of loss is replaced by a desire for revenge, but this desire is quelled a little after hearing a baby's cry from one of the nearby huts. Still, when he recognizes the humans are shooting at him, his animal instinct takes over and he attacks them. Then, one of the shots hits their mark, and he blacks out. When Nanaki wakes up, he finds himself laid out on a bed. The only other inhabitant of the room he's in is a familiar-looking man with red clothes and an emotionless expression, Vincent Valentine.
What a pair.
Vincent tells Nanaki that he had followed Elena's helicopter to the village. They better be friends
because they're going to need each other.
And had watched Nanaki attack the villagers. But he says the Nanaki he saw then wasn't the one that he knew. So, naturally, he shot Nanaki, then used one of his transformations to scare the humans out of the village. Fortunately, he says Nanaki hadn't actually killed any of them. He also mentions that either the Turks or the villagers, it's not really clear, but probably the Turks, had taken the dead bears with them. Nanaki realizes this is probably for the best, but the whole ordeal has left him very confused about how the world works, or maybe more accurately, how it should work, which prompts him to tell Vincent everything that had just happened and ask for advice about what he should have done differently. Vincent does a very Vincent thing and gives an answer that's super vague, but Nanaki basically learns from it that there's no point in wondering what he could have done differently, because he can't change the past, but he still had to remember it and learn from it. Vincent then leaves just as quickly as he had come. Nanaki wants to go with him just because he doesn't want to be alone, but Vincent refuses. So Nanaki is left to reminisce over his peaceful time in the forest. Then he finally says goodbye to the Beast World and leaves the area. Not long after, Nanaki finds his way to Rocket Town, where he finds Sid hard at work on his new airship. Barrett has already come and gone from the town at this point.
I don't remember Nanaki having this much stuff
on a
happen.
test flight. From up in the air, looking at the world from a new perspective in more ways than one, Nanaki realizes he still has much to learn about the world. Then they meet Yuffie, and Nanaki follows her on her search for a cure to geostigma. But after the two of them have looked through every materia cave Yuffie knows about, they part ways once again. Nanaki continues to wander around the world, giving every important person and event a name so that he wouldn't forget it. But with every new thing that he comes to appreciate, Gilligan grows bigger, because
he's
Nanaki
got more
has
to
more
lose.
that he's afraid to lose. Eventually, he runs into Vincent again, this time near
Yeah,
the Forgotten
this is the
City,
important
and
part.
tells him about Gilligan. Vincent suggests that Nanaki's fear of loss is different than the kind that normal people might experience, because it was specifically the fear of a future where everyone he knows has disappeared.
Which is one he will
imagines
have.
a future where he looks out over a Midgar overgrown with plants, teeming with people that he knows none of, and is terrified of it. He realizes then that his fear is specifically a fear of the loneliness he will feel after he has outlived all of his friends. Vincent then tells him not to worry about it, because there will always be other people to get to know. He even suggests that Nanaki could have children of his own. Nanaki has a hard time seeing these aspects of his potential future, though. So, Vincent offers to let Nanaki visit him every once in a while, reminding him that Vincent himself is actually immortal, meaning that he would end up outliving even Nanaki. Nanaki agrees, wondering suddenly if the fear of loneliness that Vincent feels is even greater than his own. Then Vincent reveals that he had been trying this whole time not to lose his composure over the fact that Nanaki had named his fear, then bursts out laughing. Yes, Vincent actually laughs. Who would have ever thought
because
we'd see
Gilligan
that?
is fucking funny.
The case of Shinra actually starts during the original game's story, as Sung is bleeding out in front of the altar in the Temple of the Ancients, reminiscing over his strange relationship with Aerith over the years. Sung had actually always felt unworthy in the presence of the last remaining ancient. Aerith was thankful for the protection he provided, but still hated Shinra, and by extension him. When Aerith had sided with Avalanche, Sung had become unsure of whether she should continue to be dealt with gently or should be brought in by force. He had decided that someone she already saw as evil might as well act like evil. He keeps up this front even as Aerith and Cloud find him dying there. In the end, it's Reeve, using Ketchi number 2 of course, who saves him. They both decide that the black materia is probably better off with Cloud and the others anyway.
That is a classic
and Ketchi carries the
mistranslation in the original game.
He actually takes him to
The
Velv and
lines
some of the
you
other
get
former
from,
Turks who Reeve had apparently been in contact with this whole time.
Reeve.
Although
Make it
Sung
sound
is
like,
barely
yeah,
conscious at
he's
this
dead.
point, so I guess it still
But
makes
rather,
sense that
he's
he
just
doesn't know
hurt
for
really
sure
bad
whether they're
and
alive in the epilogue
passing
of
out
Before Crisis.
is how
Or
the
does he
Japanese
actually know
translation
they're
is.
alive at that
So
point?
there's this whole
I
cultural
don't know, and I
difference where
really
people
don't feel
always
like
thought,
going back to that
assume
game
Reeve is dead.
so,
and the lines
He
that
wakes up in
Elena
a
says
recovery room in
compound it.
Junon, only to hear
Actually.
that Aerith is dead, and Sephiroth used the black materia to summon Meteor. The story then details the scene when Sung reveals that he's alive to Reno, Rude, and Elena, and it's cute and all, but doesn't really add anything that we didn't already know. The next part, however... Rufus Shinra hides under his desk, injured as debris from weapons attack on the Shinra
This
building
cutscene
falls all
almost
around him.
has like a
Part
moment
of him has already
in
accepted
it
death,
that's
but
like,
another
you
is
could
angry
use
at
this, like
himself
that
for
weird
doing so.
switch that
He
flips,
looks around desperately
right?
for any possible way to escape and notices for the first time a switch labeled with an L. He presses it, and immediately the floor opens, and Rufus finds himself sliding down an air duct. He wonders at first why such a thing would exist, then suddenly remembers a conversation he had with his father 20 years ago. President Shinra had been showing a 5-year-old Rufus blueprints for a renovation to his office at the top of the
loser
Shinra building.
room.
Hoping to impress his father, Rufus had said the first thing that came to his mind, which happened to be wondering why there was no escape route. President Shinra had been flabbergasted at first at the fact that Rufus could think that Shinra could ever have any enemies powerful enough to attack the very top floor of the Shinra building. But he actually had then decided to listen to Rufus and have an escape route built anyway. Although he did say that he would label it with the letter L for loser.
Loser.
Because of this escape route, Rufus lives through weapons attack. The air duct ends in a room where Rufus finds some painkillers for his injuries, as well as a door that's for some reason locked from the inside
Rufus
with a
always
combination
looks cool,
lock.
but boy,
He
did they
begins
give
trying
him a
random
glow up in
combinations,
Pre-Remake,
but
though,
with no success.
right?
He tries some combinations having to do with his mother and other meaningful things that both he and his father would have known, but he avoids trying his own birthday for a while because he feels that putting his hopes into this combination would be like admitting defeat to his father. But then he finally tries it and emerges into a room where he finds the Turks already searching for him, then almost immediately loses consciousness. Rude steps outside to get medical help for Rufus from the rescue teams trying to help evacuate the city. As he does so, he notices a young woman who he recognizes as someone from Cloud's team,
all the way to
probably
Smile.
this is from
It's
Rude's
interesting.
point of view,
There's
and
like
he would probably say
stuff
something if it was
happening.
Tifa, talking to someone else on the radio. This isn't actually important, but I'm pretty sure this is directly referencing a scene from Dirge of Cerberus, and I just thought that was cool. Once Rufus wakes up, he agrees to relocate to Calm, where he looks out over Midgar as Meteor approaches. Sung, Reno, Rude, and Elena stay back in Midgard to help with the evacuation, which is where we see them in the Before Crisis epilogue when they meet up with Veld and the other former Turks again.
Yep.
Reno and Rude are actually in the Shinra
The
building when the
conflict
live
is
stream is
decent at
flowing through
connecting
Midgar.
pieces between themselves.
The next day,
I'll say that,
the four
even if not all
remaining
the
Turks
pieces
meet
are
up with
amazing.
Rufus
Dirge
and
of
Calm,
Cerberus.
and they all agree to keep their jobs as Turks working for Rufus. Rufus is still heavily bandaged and confined to a wheelchair, but that doesn't stop him from trying to get things done. The first thing he does is order the Turks to return to Midgar to gather information and allies. When they do so, they find Midgar a broken place in more ways than
My
one.
model looks like it's falling
The
asleep,
people
but my
seem to
eyes are
both
wide
blame
open. I
Shinra
don't
for
know
what
why
happened
it's
and look to
doing
them to
that.
fix everything. They also find that geostigma is already becoming a problem. Meanwhile, people in
Geostigma
Calm have begun to find
and a
out where
legacy
Rufus is staying.
aren't
They
enough.
break into the house, saying that Rufus needs to pay for the damage he's done. The two sides challenge each other about what their plans for the future are, and Rufus alludes to his being something that people wouldn't like if he told them, before the mob drugs him and takes him away. The Turks return to Calm to find Rufus gone, and no one seems to know where he is. The stigma has already made its way to the town. When Rufus wakes up, he finds himself confined in a small room
You
in
know
a house
why
that he has
the
no idea
Shinra
where
story
it
for
is.
On the Way to Smile was
His
good?
foot is chained to the wall, but he is
Because
at least
when he was
well-fed
writing
and
it,
his
he
wounds tended
probably
to by
had the
a
next
doctor that
novel in
comes by
mind, and
every
that's
once in a
very
while.
focused on Shinra.
The leader of the mob, who calls himself Mutton, or at least that's what this translation calls
Kyle
him,
Mutton.
occasionally comes in to ask him about his plan. The only thing that Rufus reveals is that he plans to build a city off of the east side of Midgar, using debris from the ruined parts of the city, but he never says why. Meanwhile, the Turks are unable to find any more information about Rufus, so they leave Calm and take up residence in Sector 5 of Midgar. About 2 weeks after Rufus is captured, they hear news about someone named Mr. Kylegate, a former lieutenant in the
I got
Shinra
two
army
characters mixed
who
up.
has allowed the remnants of the army from Junon to take over the head office and has given civilian codes to Shinra warehouses, from which they've been getting tools and supplies for building a town outside the city. Veld briefly joins the Turks on their investigation, reminding them that someone at Kylegate's level should not have access to these codes. Veld also tells him that he suspects Rufus is being held in Kylegate's mansion in Calm.
Oh yeah, Veld has an
But
active
then
role
he
in
leaves the
this.
rest to Sung and the other three, saying that he's going to go to Junon to do more investigating, and that the other former Turks were living their own lives. Turns out, Mutton and Kylegate are actually one and the same. He's been able to force some of the codes out of Rufus, and for some reason seems to be
Kyle Mutton.
advancing Rufus's plan to build a town outside of Midgar. This is the town that would eventually be called Edge. But apparently Kylegate isn't the nicest person and has a lot of enemies, so one day some random guy just comes into his house and shoots him, then sets the house on fire. But then the doctor that had treated Rufus comes in and shoots the guy that had shot Kylegate, introduces himself as Killmister, mentions that he had worked for Shinra under
He's
Hojo,
also crazy.
and helps Rufus out of the burning house. Unfortunately for Rufus, they just missed the Turks arriving at the mansion. Rufus finds himself in the back of a truck with 9 other people who all have geostigma. After a while, the truck arrives at a cave near the coast that Killmister had been using as a makeshift hospital for patients who needed to be taken away from the city for fear of the stigma spreading.
In these novel stories.
When Rufus finally gets the chance to talk to Killmister, he asks why the doctor wants him there. Killmister gives Rufus the last answer he expects: Genova. He says that the cellular structure of patients with the stigma is very similar to that of soldier patients he had treated back when he worked for Shinra, but he doesn't tell Rufus anything other than that. 3 months later, Rufus's health has progressed quite a bit. Killmister tells him that the progress on the new city has been going well, except that the Turks had threatened anyone with unauthorized access to the warehouses, meaning that they don't realize that the building of the city was Rufus's idea. Killmister then requests that Rufus communicate with the Turks to have them bring him some of Hojo's old equipment. He also wants Rufus to tell him where Genova is, an interesting thing to say since, as far as we know so far, Genova was destroyed along with Sephiroth.
Right, he's got no reason to think that.
Both of them seem to believe that Genova is out there somewhere, though. But Rufus doesn't know where to look either. Not long after, Rufus finds out that Killmister had been using the same medicine he used to use on soldier patients on the people with geostigma, which didn't cure but it did help the pain. But the medicine has run out. Unfortunately for Killmister, he had also been using a version of the medicine to be able to work without sleep, but had become dependent on it. Rufus now realizes he has a way to control the doctor, and he sends Killmister to Midgar with a letter for the Turks saying that they need some of the medicine. Rufus expects Killmister to lead the Turks straight to him within 3 days, but a week passes with no sign of the doctor or the Turks. It's been raining for days, and water is starting to leak into the cave through the ceiling.
All right.
In fact, it's coming in fast enough that Rufus figures that after a while, they can use the rising water to float up to the high cave entrance and escape. He resolves to help the 5 remaining patients get out of there despite their awful condition. He drags them to the entrance and takes apart some wooden bed frames that they can use to float once the water gets high enough. Unfortunately, the water stops rising before they can reach the entrance. 2 of the patients had already drowned.
So it's just high enough to drown.
Hours pass without them being able to do anything. That's when Rufus accepts once more that he's going to die here. Then, suddenly, he feels something call out to him, but knows it couldn't be any of the remaining patients. Then, he notices a black substance on the surface of the water.
And you see, this is kind of crazy, because if you haven't read this book, you don't really understand what geostigma's doing to
best
people.
efforts to fight it, it covers him, eventually making its way to his ears and into his body, causing him to pass out. Rufus wakes up to the voice of Killmister and finds that he's still floating in the water. The doctor lowers down a ladder from the entrance of the cave, but when he sees that one of the 2 remaining patients is weak to the point of death, he shoots her without hesitation, saying that he was simply easing her passing. After Rufus and the final living patient climb out of the cave, Rufus is suddenly struck with pain. Liquid starts oozing out of his mouth, black liquid. Just as Rufus begins to think he'll have to accept Killmister's help again, the Turks show up and take control of the situation, just as Rufus had hoped they would. Apparently, when Killmister had arrived in Midgar, he had asked the Turks if they knew of a semi-remote place where he could take a large number of patients so he could continue treating them and researching a cure for the stigma. They had no choice but to trust him. So Sung told him about a place called Cliff Resort, an abandoned Shinra healing spa in the mountains. They spent the rest of the time before meeting back with Rufus, preparing the resort and transporting a bunch of patients from Calm to there. They all take Rufus there after finding him, along with the other patient from the cave, whose name is Judd, by the way, I guess. After a while of living there as a patient, Rufus randomly thinks of the city that was built because of his idea, Edge. He hears that there's a plaza in the center of the city, and decides to have a monument built in the center of it, commemorating how the planet repelled Meteor. But the true purpose of it would be to claim the city as Shinra's. The people had grown to trust Shinra a little more since Meteorfall, but not much. Interestingly, the story notes that Reeve had developed a hostile attitude towards Shinra, but he wouldn't interfere with them unless they became a big problem. The monument's construction went off without a hitch. Soon, the medicine at the Cliff Resort started to run out.
Back there, I was talking about Reeve dying. I meant Sung.
However, the
Totally
main
meant
ingredient
Sung
of
during
which
all that
was found in the
conversation
tails of Nebel bears, which is why Elena was looking for them in the case of Nanaki.
Yep.
The 4 Turks all do their part to help out, and the other residents of the resort are surprised at how loyal the group is to each other, despite the Shinra company no longer officially existing. One day, exactly 2 years after Meteor Fall, Rufus questions Killmister about the progress he's made with his research. He's still especially curious about what connection Killmister thinks the disease has to Jenova. The doctor decides to give in and tell Rufus everything he knows. He's realized the connection between the disease and accepting death, and he also thinks that all of the patients had most likely come into contact with the black water without realizing it. Besides that, though, he believes that the fever the patients exhibit means that their bodies are fighting against something foreign, and their cellular similarity to Soldier makes him think that that foreign entity is Jenova cells, transmitting remnants of the consciousness shared by Jenova and Sephiroth.
With his Jenova cells and his strong will, refusing to dissolve in the life stream,
when he thought he felt his presence in
invading other people's bodies, because it's literally alien.
Killmister is found dead. Judd, the patient from earlier, confesses to doing it. Rufus isn't surprised, but he now knows that he and the Turks have to find whatever remains of Jenova before anyone else does. The story ends with them changing Cliff Resort's name to Healin' Lodge.
Healin' Lodge.
Very clever name, guys. On a scale of 1 to 10, that name gets an Asgore. Asgore out of 10. Good job.
Healin' Lodge.
Finally, we've made it to what could be called the Case of the Life Stream, but this one's a little different. One of its 6 chapters was put at the end of each story and On the Way to a Smile.
Right, they're not
the 5 stories we've
full
covered,
chapters,
plus the one
they're
we
like
haven't got
mini
to quite yet.
in-between ones.
3 of the chapters are called Lifestream Black, and 3 are called Lifestream White, the black chapters following one character and the white chapters following another. The book tries to be coy and calls them the man and the woman, but we all know that it's Sephiroth and Aerith in the Lifestream, so I'll just be referring to them that way. Lifestream Black 1. Sephiroth, having just been defeated, refuses to let himself lose his consciousness to the Lifestream.
This is such an important plot
point. The
point.
planet is still his to rule, but the planet's pull is strong. In order to remain himself within the Lifestream, he knows that he has to make some part of his spirit, of his memories, a core that he would be able to hold onto no matter what. He decides to make that core his memories of Cloud, the one who had not once but twice sent him into the Lifestream. And he plans to make sure Cloud knows it. Lifestream White
Hate
1.
me so I never...
Even after Meteor's destruction,
so I never
Aerith
leave your
senses
memory.
that her role is not yet
so that
complete, and
your
chooses
thoughts
to
of
remain
me
conscious
sustain
within
me,
the Lifestream.
basically.
She senses Sephiroth's presence there, circling within the Lifestream but never mixing with it. She can't approach him herself since it's too dangerous for her, but she gets close enough to him at one point to realize that he had made Cloud his core. Cloud, someone she still loved and wanted to protect. Lifestream Black 2. Sephiroth had surrendered his memories to the Lifestream, all except his memories of Cloud and his own mission. When the Lifestream bursts onto the surface, Sephiroth travels through leaving Jenova's cells
what's
wherever
left of
he goes.
Cloud, or what's left
maybe
of
it's the parts of
Sephiroth
his
is
own consciousness
very
that he's
different
leaving
from
behind.
Sephiroth.
You'll hear the term
Those are different
Jenova's
things.
mimetic legacy a few times down the line when he's talking about this idea, and I looked it up, and apparently that term has something to do with relating ideas to a virus. So maybe that means that it's both physical Jenova cells and Sephiroth's consciousness at the same time? I guess that would make some sense because of the ability of Jenova cells to transmit memories and stuff. Also, this ties back into the idea of both the souls Aerith came across whose energy didn't mix with the Lifestream, and the black water. None of the canon material actually calls it this, but developer interviews have identified this as negative Lifestream, something that forms in the same plane as the normal Lifestream, but is entirely separate since it's made of souls who were filled with hatred and evil. Anyway, Sephiroth knows that as long as the Geostigma is around, Cloud will never forget him. And as long as Cloud remembers him, he will be able to come back. Lifestream White 2. Aerith begins to notice that there are more and more consciousnesses in the Lifestream that refuse to be absorbed by it because of their hatred toward the planet. They're victims of the Geostigma who think that the disease was caused by the planet. She tries to heal them, the same way she was able to heal souls full of hate like Dyne earlier, if that's even canon, but whatever. She's able to heal many, but there are too many of them arriving there for her to keep up with. She knows that Sephiroth is going to use these souls in some way in the future, so she begins rallying souls to her side. She finds a few people that she used to know here and there, and is even able to find a few ancients who hadn't completely diffused yet. Even so, her cause is lost if Sephiroth's influence continues to ravage the surface.
And it is continuing.
She wonders if she could get Cloud to help, but is also worried about him getting hurt. Lifestream Black 3. Sephiroth relishes the corruption he is spreading on the surface and in the lifestream. But in order for Cloud and the other humans to know that he is the one causing all this chaos, he would need to find a way to physically manifest himself on the surface, something Genova's power should allow him to be able to do. However, he is unable to because he had already given up most of his memories, including that of his own appearance. So he finds a soul of someone whose hatred has so far kept them from losing their memories, and uses those memories to manifest a remnant of himself on the surface. Soon, he decides to create 2 more agents in the same way to carry out his will. These 3 remnants are Sephiroth himself, but at the same time are their own separate people. They would travel the world, learning more about Sephiroth and thus helping him regain more of his lost memories, while at the same time searching for a remaining piece of Jenova that would allow Sephiroth himself to manifest fully.
And if you don't know this, Advent Children, especially the non-complete,
Aerith
like the
continues trying to figure
original
out how
version
she
of
could
Advent Children,
communicate with Cloud
could be
and
so
what she would tell him if she
weird.
did. She becomes aware of Sephiroth's plan to use remnants of himself as agents on the surface, and wonders if she has the power to do the same. Even if she does, though, she decides that she doesn't want to. If she talks to Cloud again, she wants to meet him the way he knows her.
I don't remember Aerith saying that before. That's
script,
concerning.
And we're just now making it to
maybe she does it
the big one.
Now, but what if she does later?
We only have 3 stories to go, and we're only halfway done with the
Remnant
video.
of Aerith.
The big one I'm talking about is
like.
a novel, a light novel, novella. I don't really know how you'd classify it technically, but the point is it's significantly longer than a short story.
Oh yeah, it's way longer than On the Way to a Smile.
Around the end of the period covered in On the Way to a Smile, besides Chapter 1, which happens during the original game, but features an all-new cast of main characters. This is Lateral Biography, Turks, The Kids Are Alright. Or just The Kids Are Alright.
These characters show up in Remake.
This is one that I would especially recommend reading on your own if you get the chance, because I'm going to be leaving out a lot of good character moments and interactions that aren't actually important to the plot, but they're still good writing, so check them out.
It's a very good book.
With that, let's begin.
It's a very good book.
The story of The Kids Are Alright is told mostly in first person from the perspective of a young man named Evan Townsend, but does have a few third-person cutaways to flesh out the story. For most of his life, Evan lived in the upper plate of Midgar's Sector 6 with his single mother, Annette. She works at a nearby bar, so even though they live up on the plate, they're still pretty poor. Evan knows nothing about who his father was. About a week before Evan's 17th birthday, his mother announces that they would be having a guest over for dinner. The man's name is Nick Foley, and although he tries to endear himself to Evan, Evan has a bad feeling about the guy right away, just immediately hates his guts. Apparently his mother knew him but had never mentioned him before. The small talk around the table continues pointlessly for a little bit until suddenly Foley mentions that Annette had already agreed to leave Midgar with him in 2 days, and that Evan would have to come along. Without hesitation, Evan gets up and storms out of the door in anger, something very unlike him. After calming down a bit, he decides that he would wait for 2 days before returning home in order to force his mother and Nick Foley to not be able to leave. In the meantime, he decides to hang out in the warehouse district of Sector 8. But right as he reaches the border of Sectors 7 and 8, the Sector 7 plate collapses. Evan escapes without injury, but his main way back home is now gone. Going through Sector 0 in the middle of the city isn't an option either, since Shinra had blocked it off due to the recent terrorist activity. So he's forced to walk all the way around Midgar to get back, a journey which takes him a total of 3 days and is not without its own hardships. When he finally gets home, he finds that his mother is gone, and has left more money than she should have been able to afford to give him, along with a letter. It's short and impersonal, only saying that she would contact him once she and Nick have reached their new home. Evan is disgusted that his mother had accepted so much money from the man that had taken her away from him. He's so mad that he actually unplugs the phone from the wall, purposefully cutting off his mom's only reliable way of contacting him.
On the way, the
sees
smile
the
is
whole
cool because
situation
you
as
get
his mother abandoning
these
him,
stories that
and
are,
resolves to learn to live
like
on
I said,
his own.
about the characters having
He gets
to
a job
deal
without too much
with
trouble
things they
and
were
is
not
able to live
able
like
to
that
deal
for a little
with
while.
in the middle of an
That is,
adventure.
until Meteor appears
living
in the sky.
life and
Many
having
people
to
flee
actually
Midgar, including
implant
Evan's
their
employer.
character progressions
He
rather
also,
than progress.
like many others,
But these are all
considers the
new original
possibility of death
characters,
for the first time.
and you just kind of got the context of
As
the
he
world
thinks
you're
things
working
over,
with.
he realizes that he was stupid to think that his mother had abandoned him.
But the characters
he
are
can't
cool,
force himself to
which is
leave
why
the
they probably
house
put him in a
because
remake.
it resembles his last connection to her at the moment. He waits for a week
Minus
after the live
Evan,
stream bursts to the
at
surface
least.
for his mother to come home.
Apparently, it seems
Then he
like
leaves a
Evan
letter
isn't
for
in the
his
story.
mother
It'd be
before
super
finally
fucking weird if he
abandoning his
was
home
and we didn't know
going
it.
to the slums.
Be
The story
incredibly
then
weird.
picks up nearly 2
It's not
years
impossible,
later with
but it'd be
Rufus and the
incredibly
Turks,
weird.
not long after they've changed Cliff Resort's name
I
to
don't know
Healing.
the reason they would do the thing
Rufus
they could
is
do,
still
but
planning to soon move forward with his plan to locate Genova. They're also still working on perfecting the Geostigma pain-killing medicine,
when we get to the plot point,
of which they plan
here,
on giving
this
the manufacturing
synopsis, I'll
method to
explain
any
what I
organization
mean there.
able to make it.
It'd be super
such
weird,
as
though.
Reeves' new World Regenesis Organization, or the WRO
So-
for short.
Is
Rufus
Reed
is still
daft?
using a
Does he
wheelchair,
not
even though
realize
the case
how
of Shinra said
awful
he
of a
technically
name that
doesn't need
sounds? It
one
sounds so
anymore,
fucking
either
evil,
he's just playing it
right?
super safe, or he's faking being more injured than he really is. As Elena is checking some medicine that's about to be shipped, she finds evidence that some of it had been tampered with. She then finds a stranger outside and chases after him, but he gets away. A man named Throp, who had been working at Healing,
There's
is
so many
discovered to
weird
have been an
names in this
accomplice
book,
with the
so-
man who got away, and the Turks find out from
What's the
questioning
guy's
him
name?
that the name of the other man is
It's like a
Fabio
soldier.
Brown.
Fabio!
They then
Yes!
ask Throp where this Fabio Brown lives. Reno and Rude are sent to Edge to find him, but someone leads them away from Fabio and instead to Evan, now 19 years old, who is now living in Edge. They don't do anything that bad to Evan, though, just beat him up and then leave. Reno seems a little shocked when he first sees Evan's face, which leads to an awkward questioning about Evan's father. Evan's fine with getting beat up, though, because Fabio is his friend.
Hold on,
The
can I do
person
this
who
pose?
told the Turks that Evan was Fabio just wanted to protect Fabio, because his younger brother, Vitz, has Geostigma.
I'm doing the
Their
cover
parents
face.
had died
Hold on.
when Sector 7 fell, so Fabio is the only one left to protect Vitz. When Evan goes to Fabio's house to check on him, he's not there. Instead, it's just Vitz, who tells Evan that Fabio had been getting him medicine that helped with the stigma's pain. Evan then goes into the
so
center
remember
of
that
town,
this
which
story
has
is
actually
after
become a
On the Way to
flourishing city
Smile,
of
but
its
still
own.
before
The
Advent
monument
Children,
in the
so
middle of the
Geostigma
plaza
is a
is still
huge
being
problem
built,
still.
and its building is being overseen by the Turks. Evan makes his way to the nearby Seventh Heaven bar, where he's first greeted by Tifa before he sits down with his friends who are already there, Fabio Brown and 2 others, Leslie Kyle and Kyrie Kanan. Evan tells them about his encounter that morning, which causes the conversation to turn to the other 2 interrogating Fabio, and he
Which is
admits
such a
to
funny
having
thing,
stolen
because
some
so few
medicine
people
for
have read
Vitz
this
from
book,
Healing.
and they don't realize.
They're confused at
that they
first
aren't,
why the Turks didn't kill Evan,
new
but
characters.
Leslie, the
Even the
super
grandmother
big brain
isn't
of
a
the
new
group,
character.
guesses that it's
Even
because they didn't want to
the-
hurt Shinra's
what's her
reputation
name?
even more.
The
He thinks that Evan and Fabio don't have anything to worry about from them, especially since he and all the other common people think Rufus is dead and Shinra is
She isn't new
leaderless.
either.
After Fabio and Leslie head back home, Kyrie and Evan go to the office of their business, the
Though I
Murray
think she-
Detective Agency in
Yeah.
the Midgar slums. The agency is named
Detective
after
agency.
Kyrie's late grandmother. The small business actually gets
he
a
didn't
decent
show the
amount of
picture.
clients,
Maybe-
but it's mostly thanks to a marketing
In the
ploy
side quest, you
where they say
realize
that
that
Kyrie
Murray,
has the ability
the
to
thief
read the life
lady,
stream
is
to find
Kyrie's
missing people.
grandmother.
This
so-
is, of course, a lie, but even
But I
some who
believe
don't
in the
believe
book,
it come to them
Kyrie's
anyway as a
grandmother
last
might
bit
be
of hope
deceased
that they'll find
by the
whatever they
time
lost.
of the book.
Evan and the
think.
others do
Maybe?
actually try to help out their clients, though, and
At the
they've
very
actually
least,
had
they
a few
don't ever talk
successes.
about the whole Robin
Their
Hood
client for
angle
today
of
is
Murray.
an older man named Tyrion Ard, I think that's how you pronounce that, who was looking for his son Gould.
Gould
Gould
that's the
Ard had
soldier.
been a soldier second
Yeah.
class who disappeared even before
Gould,
Meteorfall
such
after
weird
saying
names.
that he had to go out on a special mission. After Meteorfall, someone had come to Tyrion with a photograph of
A
Gould
Final
and
Fantasy
14
World
others
detective
standing
side
in front
plot,
of an
side
old
story
stone
plot
mansion
would be
that
kind
he
of
didn't
fun, wouldn't
recognize.
it?
Unfortunately, the man succumbed to his geostigma before Tyron could learn any more
genuinely
information
curious
about him.
with, like,
or
Leslie and Curie,
the photo
like, why
also
they would
has a
introduce
name
them
and
if they're
phone
not going to
number on the
plan to
back,
do something
But Tyron
with
says
them.
he tried the number and it
Like,
goes
I could see
nowhere.
them using those characters
The book
in
saves this
Zach's
reveal for later,
like
but
parallel
when Evan
stories,
looks
since
at
he
the photo,
starts in
he
Midgar
notices
while the
that one of
party's
the people
starting
in it is
outside,
his mother.
so that like all
And
these
the
other
name on the
characters that
back
can't be
is
part of
none
the
other
story
than
could be
Nick
part of
Foley.
like a Zach
He
party
figures that
of
the
some
man
sort,
who brought
even if
Tyron
it's
the
not like a
photo was
combat
Foley
party,
himself.
but like a
That night, Elena arrives
story
in
party.
Edge. She hadn't been satisfied with the damage
here's the
Reno and
scenario I
Rude had
thought
done
of.
to compensate for the stolen medicine.
We've seen scenes of like
So
Zach
she finds
like
Fabio,
dropping
the real one this time,
Cloud off
and
of
beats him
Kyrie
up
or something
badly.
to go check
She
on
holds
Aerith
back a little
when he
when
gets
she
in
sees
town.
Vitz and his stigma, though.
Well, what if
Even giving
Kyrie
him
like
some
loses
advice
him
on
or
how
something?
often to take the
And
meds
then
before leaving.
Zach's quest is
Not
to
knowing what else
find
to do,
Cloud.
Vitz
He's
goes
probably
and gets
going
Evan,
towards the
who's able
northern
to get
crater,
Fabio
and
some
so he
help.
hires the
He's not
Moray
in good
Detective
shape, but
Agency
it's
and
not
those new
life-threatening
characters
either.
to come along with him
Fabio
or
had
something.
recognized the Turk's uniform on his
Maybe that's
attacker,
not what
and
happens,
he tells Evan
but
as much.
man,
The next
they
morning,
made
Evan
something
fills
like that
Leslie and
possible by
Kyrie
bringing
in on
those
the
characters
situation.
in.
The two of them go to see Fabio while Evan heads to the office. But Evan had forgotten his key, so not knowing what else to do, he sits down leaning against the doorframe and ends up passing out from lack of sleep the past 2 nights. When Kyrie gets there and finds him like that, but isn't able to wake him up, she freaks out and runs off trying to find a way to call the doctor. She sees Reno and Rude supervising the building of the monument in the plaza and recognizes them based on Evan's description of the
So much
Turks that
time
had beat
spent
him up.
building this monument.
Out of desperation,
so quickly
she walks
does it
straight
get
up to them
destroyed.
and asks to use one of their phones to call a doctor after guilting them for beating up the wrong guy. Then, because they're both big softies inside, I guess, or at least Reno is, they actually do
He's a
call
big
a doctor
softy
and
who,
go with Kyrie to
you
the
know,
office.
genocided a city.
But the doctor just confirms that Evan's fine and is just sleeping.
God, it blows
After
my
that,
mind
though,
people
the
let
two
that
Turks
go.
ask Kyrie to come somewhere with them, and that Evan would be coming as
He
well.
killed so...
She agrees
okay,
out of fear.
in Remake he hasn't. He just
When
tried
Evan finally
to.
wakes up, Kyrie
He
tells
just
him
tried
everything
to. He
that
just
happened.
did collateral
Evan
damage.
doesn't like the idea of what the
So
Turks might do to
Remake
them
Reno
after
is
they
a
get
better
out of the city.
person than original
So
story
he suggests
Reno.
that they try to escape, and Kyrie agrees.
By accident.
Only Rude is there at the moment, so they decide to split up and run for it. Unfortunately, they're no match for a Turk. After Rude stops their escape, Kyrie suddenly bursts out wondering if this is the same way that they took Aerith. Without any further explanation or answer from Rude, he leads them away. While they're in the truck on the way to Heelan, Reno asks Evan about his heritage again, this
So
time
that
about
is
his
an
mother.
element that's
Evan
weird.
tells him
I
that
don't
her name is
remember
Annette
if
Townsend, but nothing else.
You never...
Reno calls someone on the phone and
Do you
reports
never
this information.
encounter Kyrie when Aerith is in your party
Kyrie
in
also
Remake?
tells them about how she used to be friends with Aerith back when she was 10. They
That's what I'm
played together
saying.
in the church until one day
You
when
first
Aerith
find
suddenly
her
told Kyrie to
in
run
the
home.
same sector as
and when
Aerith.
she got there, she found
But
out
I
that her
don't
parents
think you
were
actually
dead.
ever encounter
Her
her while
grandmother
Aerith
Murray
is
took care of
in
her
the
after
party.
that.
So that's
Aerith's
interesting.
premonition creeped her out,
They
so
might
she
do
stopped
something with
coming to
that.
the church. She had heard about the Turks taking Aerith after the Sector 7 incident. Reno tells Kyrie then that Aerith had died. Kyrie feels guilty for using what she knew about Aerith to lie to their customers about being able to read the live stream, and figures they should
Yeah, she
shut
did-
down
she
the
did a
agency
Cetra
after they solve
grift,
their
basically.
current case. Once this topic is brought up, Kyrie shows Reno and Rude the photo of Gould Ard. They don't recognize Ard, but they recognize the place.
Yeah, if in Zach's
Nibelheim.
storyline it starts with a
After
funeral
hearing
for
Annette's
Aerith or
name
something
from
like
Reno,
that,
Rufus and Sung immediately try to find any
maybe
records
that could
about
be a
her.
way.
They find that she had actually worked for Shinra
Hey,
as a
watch Cloud
secretary
for
20
me.
years ago,
Runs
and had been
over
offered
to
a significantly
Aerith's
larger retirement
mom,
fund than most.
finds out that she's
which
passed
tells
away,
Rufus
runs
that
to the
she
church.
must have been someone
Kyrie
special
hears
to
about
his
it,
father.
goes and follows him,
With this
leaves
information,
Cloud
along
behind.
with the fact
Cloud
that Evan
wanders
is
off.
19 years
Then
old,
they have to go find
it's
him.
not hard for Rufus to
After
put the
all of that's
pieces
said and
together.
done,
Anyone who knew Rufus would notice the resemblance between him and Evan,
I should
which
clip
is
that,
exactly
just in
what
case
startled
it's exactly
Reno
how it
back when
fucking
he
goes
first
down.
met Evan. Rufus isn't surprised. He's met half-brothers of his before.
So yeah.
On that note, I realized I completely forgot to mention while we were watching through Crisis Core on stream that Director Lazard was actually a son of President Shinra as well, and that's part of why he wanted revenge on Shinra and everything. Kunsel probably mentioned it in one of his 80,000 emails or something.
And we
he
talked
just
about it
missed
during
when
our
we were
stream.
reading them, so
But yeah,
whoops.
Evan is
Anyway, once
a
they get to
half-brother
Heelan,
of Rufus.
Rude stays outside with with Kyrie while Reno
He's another
takes Evan
bastard child of
inside to meet
Shinra.
Rufus.
So I'm saying,
He's
like,
of course
okay,
surprised to learn
Leslie
that
and
Rufus is
Kyrie
alive.
showed up, but Evan's
He's even more shocked to
conspicuously
learn that the president is his
absent.
half-brother. Suddenly, they hear the sound of a nearby explosion.
It sounds absolutely fucking insane that they do like a switcheroo.
But then they notice a nearby car, the one taken here by the people who had caused the explosion. Among the people in the car, they recognize one of the voices.
The realm
Fabio,
of possibility.
come to rescue
I just
Throp,
don't
who
think
had been
it's
detained
likely.
because of the medicine Fabio stole.
It's just weird that Evan doesn't appear anywhere as a side story or anything, while the other two
beg
do.
Rufus to order the Turks not to hurt their friend.
There's three
Rufus
characters
tells
that do,
Evan that
but
it's
not
up
the
to
main
him
character.
to save his friend. So Evan does the only
So
thing
he is
can think
younger
to do. He
at
wheels
that point?
Rufus outside and yells
still
at
living with
Reno
his mom
and
at
Rude
that
to
point, so
stop
maybe that's
if they
why.
value the president's life, threatening him with a small utility knife that Kyrie had given him. But Rufus calmly tells Reno and Rude to go do something else and not pursue Fabio, then tells Kyrie where to find a gun that they can use to defend themselves, in case they run into monsters on their drive back to Edge with Fabio and Throp, who stole a truck from there because the vehicle they had used to get there wasn't starting. It's not very clear what Rufus's motivation is, but Kyrie actually feels a little sorry for him because of his geostigma, and Evan leaves him the knife in exchange for the gun. Evan and Kyrie have to ride in the truck's bed on the way back to Edge.
Yeah.
Now, we haven't really been talking about Evan and Kyrie's relationship through all of this, but she's definitely been pretty flirty with him. So she honestly should have probably known better than to mention that Rufus kind of seemed like the ideal man to her in both looks and personality, while Evan's in this kind of emotional distress. They get into a bit of a passive-aggressive argument that ends with Kyrie shooting Rufus's gun at nothing in particular, but the recoil causes her to fall on top of Evan and make him hit his head hard enough on the truck bed to be knocked out. He wakes up in the care of a local doctor in Edge named Dr. Drake. Kyrie's there, but she leaves after
another
a short,
doctor in
tense
Final Fantasy
conversation
VII.
with
This
Evan.
can't go well.
When Evan feels good enough to leave, Dr. Drake tells Evan that he recognized a scar on Evan's chest from where Evan had had heart surgery when he was 5, then reveals that he was actually the one who sewed Evan up back when he worked for
And I
Shinra.
put a bomb in you,
Drake is
boy.
curious how Evan's mom had gotten him a top Shinra surgeon, but Evan now knows the answer to that. When Evan gets back home, he visits Fabio and the others who had been with him. They tell Evan that the Turks had come back to get the stolen vehicle back, and that Reno had left a message for Evan saying that he had betrayed them. Fabio figures Evan should run away. Evan asks to use the car that the Turks had returned to him, but it's in bad shape and low on fuel.
So
He takes the leftover money from Nick Foley from 2 years ago,
Now it's
along
time
with
to
some
find out
photos
about
of his
Leslie.
mother that he could use to ask people if they had seen
I
her,
believe.
then drives away to try and find fuel. The first place he goes is to a bulletin board in the center of town, where he knows he'll find a flyer for the Strife delivery service. After taking the flyer, he goes to Dr. Drake to ask if he can use his phone.
Doing the thing where the guy's got
When
his
he
mouth
calls the
open and he's
number on
pointing
the
to the
flyer,
back.
he is surprised to hear a 10-year-old boy on the other end, who introduces himself as Denzel. Evan actually tells him that he needs to have a letter delivered from one side of Edge to the other. Then, while he's waiting for Denzel to tell the person in charge of the deliveries about Evan's request, he notices a strange photo on some of the documents that Dr. Drake is looking at. A gross-looking arm that Drake says has been mummified. When the Strife delivery service calls back, it's actually a young girl, although Evan doesn't realize that it's Marlene, who he would know from Seventh Heaven, so I guess he doesn't know that that's the delivery service's base of operations. She tells Evan that he'll have to wait a little longer because Denzel's condition just got worse. Evan continues to wait, and the conversation goes back to the mummified arm. Drake, who used to work for Shinra, remember, tells him that it's the arm of a woman who had been injected with Genova cells. Of course, then
I
he
got
has
some
to
Genova
explain what
in me.
Genova is, and even then Evan doesn't fully
Sorry.
understand what he's
I wish
talking
I could do
about.
the
But it makes him wonder even more
the
just what
you
kind
got a
of
hole in your throat from
organization
smoking
Shinra was.
voice. I wish. I wonder
Not
if there's
long
a trick
after,
to be able
Cloud
to
shows
make
up
that,
at the door.
Make that voice.
Evan is intimidated by him, especially because his request had been a lie, but when he tells him that he's looking for a place to find fuel, Cloud tells him to find Don Corneo in Wall Market and tell him that Cloud sent him. It's only when Evan mentions that he wants to get to Nibelheim that Cloud asks questions. Cloud tells him not to go there, but tells him that if he really wants to know how to get there, he should go to Seventh Heaven. After Cloud leaves, Evan tries to find a place to park his car while he goes to Seventh Heaven and then Wall Market. Surprisingly, the best place he can think of to leave it where it won't get stolen is under the protection of the Turks by the monument. Evan already realized a while ago that Reno was most likely the easiest of the Turks to talk to, so he wants to get on Reno's good side as much as possible for his own safety. First off, he tells Reno that it had been Rufus's idea for Evan to quote-unquote betray them, and Reno believes him right away and agrees to watch his car until he gets back. In Seventh Heaven,
Whatever you say,
Tifa
guy who
is
looks like my
reluctant
boss.
to tell Evan how to get to Nibelheim.
I'm just
But when
predisposed
he
to do
tells her
whatever
the
someone
truth that there's
who's
the
blonde and
slightest
blue-eyed
possibility
tells
that
me.
his mother might be there, and he has to see
Get
for
in
himself.
medicine?
She
Sure.
tells him how
Build
to
a
get there.
statue?
He'll have to
Sure.
drive to Under
Drop a
Junon,
plate and
which
kill
used to be
probably
called Junon
100,000
Harbor, and
innocent
take a boat
people?
across the ocean
Yeah.
from there. She lets Evan
It's a
take her
living.
map of Midgar, then he leaves. Before going to Wall Market, Evan first goes to Leslie's house in the slums. He's greeted at the door by Leslie's pregnant wife, girlfriend, it doesn't really specify, who introduces herself as Marl. No relation to the person in Remake who has the same name, by the way, at least not that we know of. As Evan and Leslie exchange small talk before
it's
Evan
the
gets
same
to
character,
the point,
they just changed the
conversation
circumstances,
briefly
that's
turns
all.
to Kyrie,
It's
who
not that
Leslie had known a
complicated.
lot longer than Evan had.
It's
Leslie
more
mentions
compelling
that
to have a
Kyrie is
character
afraid
to
of
give him a
fire because of
motivation than a
traumatic
character that
experience,
he's
but
already in a
doesn't
happy
explain any
family with.
further
That's
than
the
that.
only difference.
When Evan mentions that he needs to see Don Corneo, Leslie and
Oh,
Marl
he's
suddenly
saying
get
Mar-
super serious.
I forgot
Leslie
that
takes
the
him outside
innkeeper
and
lady is
sternly
named
tells him
Marl.
to never
I thought he
mention
was saying that
Corneo
Leslie's
in front of
girlfriend is a
Marl
different
again.
character. I'm like,
Then he
that
tells
doesn't
him how
make
to get
sense.
to Wall Market without asking questions. Corneo does indeed
They
let
just
Evan
changed
in
the
after
plot
hearing that
details
Cloud
around
sent
her,
him.
that's all.
Evan finds Corneo's
Or
room
no,
in the same condition as it
This
was
is
in the original
after
game,
regular
except
Final
now
Fantasy VII,
Corneo
so
has
they've
pictures
reunited
of
by this
various
point.
girls that seem to have been taken with a hidden camera hung up all over the walls. In one of them is 3 girls, one of whom Evan recognizes as Tifa, and another one that he hilariously can clearly see is Cloud dressed as a woman. He
I
also
think the
sees
funniest
a
thing
picture
here
of
is that Don
Marl.
Corneo is still
Corneo
fucking
is
alive
still just as much of a
in this
scumbag as
novel.
ever, forcing Evan to
The
take the
dude
fuel for
dropped
free
off
so
of a
that he would be in
statue on a
Corneo's debt.
mountain.
He does seem to be at least a little afraid of
I'm
Cloud,
pretty sure
though, which is
Reno watched
probably
him go
why he gives
splat,
Evan his
so that's
word that
what's
the fuel
crazy.
would be delivered to Edge the following morning. Then he seems to recognize Evan and goes to find a photo in a nearby album. While he's looking away, Evan sneakily takes the photos of Tifa and Marl off the wall. The picture Corneo takes out of the album is one of Evan and his mother that he had taken off a bulletin board a while back. He teases Evan with the knowledge that there was contact information on the back of the picture, but won't tell him what it says unless Evan pays him. He gives in, takes the picture, and leaves. On his way out, he looks at the picture with Tifa and Cloud in it and notices that the other girl is labeled as Aerith, the ancient girl that Kyrie had known. He then tears up both of the stolen photos, then looks at the name on the back of the other one, Nick Foley. He realizes that Corneo taking this photo off the bulletin board may have robbed him of a chance to have seen his mother again long ago. The first place he goes after this is back to Leslie's place because he's worried that Corneo might notice
Leslie
which
is
of his
such a
pictures
bro
had
in this
disappeared
book.
and cause trouble for Leslie and Marl. Then Leslie gives Evan this kind of random but interesting spiel about how even though Evan can be an idiot sometimes, he has a good conscience. In fact, he notes that he, Fabio, and Kyrie have all changed for the better since starting to hang around Evan, especially Kyrie. Leslie then says that he'll stay and face his past if it catches up to him.
Kyrie hasn't
Evan
met
tells
Evan
him
yet.
that he's going
That's
to be away
possible.
for a
That's why
while
she's
and that it was
such
fuel
a
that he had
shitheel
needed
in
from
Remake.
Corneo, then leaves. Evan makes one last stop before leaving Midgar, back to Seventh Heaven to tell Tifa basically the same thing he told Leslie. She tells him not to worry because she has Cloud. Also, she's really good at punching things, so she probably wouldn't have too much of a problem. Then she mentions that Kyrie had come by earlier, and she had told Kyrie about Evan's plan to go to Nibelheim. When Evan goes back to the car in the plaza, Kyrie is already waiting for him inside. They drive as far as they can, but the car runs out of gas after a short while.
My God,
After
man,
they begin to
plan.
wonder if Corneo isn't going to come through with the gas, the two of them finally talk out their arguments and start to get along again. After a while, someone finally shows up with the fuel, but it's not one of Corneo's men, it's Leslie.
Hell yeah.
He also has some money and guns for them as well. Apparently,
yeah.
after talking with Evan the previous night, he had gone to Corneo and pretended to ask for his old job working for Corneo back.
See?
When Corneo gave him the job
His
of
old
delivering
job
the fuel
working
to
for
Evan,
him.
Leslie
What he's
took the
doing in
fuel and
Remake.
money, because apparently Corneo had just been kidding about Evan paying for the photo of his mom, stole the guns, then set fire to Corneo's place. He and Marl are now hiding in Evan's house in Edge.
God, I fucking love
Leslie
Leslie.
keeps some of the
He's
guns that
such
he
a-
stole, and Evan lets him keep the money too, since he has his own. Then Evan and
Fucking
Kyrie part
baseball
ways with
cap
their
wearing,
friend and leave Edge.
gray-haired, Noctis looking shit.
Meanwhile, the Turks discuss moving forward with their plan to locate Genova, but then hear footsteps running away, meaning that someone heard their plan. Rude tracks them down, but when he gets close, a lit bomb lands at his feet. Before it goes off, Rude picks it up and throws it back at his targets. After the explosion, he goes to investigate and finds Fabio Brown and one of his accomplices dead. While Evan and Kyrie are
good
driving
job,
to
Fabio,
Underjunon,
you
they
dumbass.
reminisce about how they first met. Kyrie had been in the habit of conning people by pretending she was injured and asking for their help, only to steal whatever she could off the people who helped her and run away. Evan happened to become one of her victims nearly as soon as he left his house on the plate 7 days after Meteorfall. The next morning, though, Kyrie found him again in the slums and told him that her grandmother scolded her and told her to apologize and return what she stole. Then she took him to her house, where he met Mireille. The old woman told Evan that she and Kyrie steal for a living, but also try to make amends for the bad things they do so they don't become bad people.
I'm remembering
Not long
Mireille
after,
being
Kyrie,
different.
Leslie, and Fabio got the idea to start a detective agency, and Kyrie invited Evan to join as well. The night after Evan and Kyrie leave Edge, they run into a random girl on a chocobo, who may or may not possibly definitely be Yuffie, who asks them about rumors she's been hearing about a medicine for geostigma. Evan tells her that it only helps with the pain and that the WRO is giving it out for free, then the girl leaves. Very random, but I had to mention it because it's Yuffie. Later on their drive, the two stop at a spring that they find near the road and take a little swim.
In Intergrade,
As they're
Yuffie does
playfully
meet Kyrie,
splashing
and
each
it's
other
like
and
these
trying
two
in
are
vain
too
to catch
alike, they
fish,
have to hate
they
each
notice
other.
a monster approaching. A wolf-like monster with red fur and a burning tail. Evan gets out of the water and grabs one of their guns to kill the monster, but being inexperienced with guns, ends up shooting and blowing up their car instead. Then he hears Kyrie call out in panic behind him. She seems to be getting dragged underwater, and the water around her is black. Evan dives in to save her, but suddenly the monster tells Evan to get out of the water. It, or he, then dives in to save her himself, even compressing her chest to get the water out of her lungs. Then, introducing himself as Nanaki, he offers to carry Kyrie on his back to Underjunon for medical help. Sung and Elena are in Underjunon at the time, so when they hear about Kyrie's arrival there, and specifically that it was Red 13 that brought her there, Sung goes to see her right away.
It must
she
be
had
weird
been being treated
to
by
be
someone
like-
named Dr. Eugene, who Sung seems to know from a long time ago.
I know that guy. He's one of the
Also,
other,
Kyrie
like,
is totally
12
fine and
strongest
doesn't
people
have
on this entire
geostigma like
planet
she totally
that regularly
should, based on everything we know
hang
about
out
it, and the
and
book
or
never
fight
brings
each
that
other.
up again, but sure, okay,
Like,
whatever.
It's not just
Before
for Final
Sung
Fantasy
enters the
7,
room
but
where
for
Kyrie is
anything where there's
staying,
like a big
he
wide
hears
world.
Kyrie talking with
but
a
there's
boy
like
whose voice he doesn't recognize.
a dozen people that are
Kyrie
obviously
tells the boy
stronger than
that she
anyone else
thought
on
he
the
died
planet,
in
but
the
they all know
fire.
each other.
When Sung goes inside the room, he sees standing next to Kyrie.
Like, you think
a
there'd be
young
like
man
some that never
with
run into
silver
each other because
hair
the world's
and
so big and
piercing
wide. But
eyes.
no,
Hair
they
and
always find their
eyes
way to
that
each other.
remind him of Sephiroth. Sung's blood runs cold as the boy calmly introduces himself as Kadaj, an old friend of Kyrie's. Then, suddenly,
Yes.
Sung and Kyrie both
The
simultaneously
remnants
lose
are actually
consciousness.
using forms
When they come
based on
to a
other
second
characters'
later, Kadaj is gone.
Memories
Sung
and friends,
questions
just like the
Kyrie about
Genova
this friend of
shapeshifting.
hers, and soon learns that the
use
boy
to
that Kyrie
trick people.
saw was quite different from the one Sung saw, with orange hair instead of silver. Sung remembers the story about Genova having the ability to take on the appearance of dead family members and friends of the ancient Cetra to gain their trust and influence over them, and warns Kyrie that Kadaj may not be the person she thinks he is. Of course, Kyrie doesn't believe him. The story is one that Sung had heard from Professor Hojo, and Sung wonders what illusions Genova had made him see. Perhaps that's even why he went mad. Sung then takes Kyrie
fuck
out to
would
meet
Hojo
Elena,
see?
who
He doesn't care about
accidentally lets
people
it
at
slip
all.
that Fabio is dead. Kyrie doesn't take it well, but Sung convinces her that it was an accident. The Turks don't want to do anything to cause grief to the president's half-brother after all. Sung then reports to Rufus that Genova might be closer than they think. After Nanaki had left Evan, he at first had planned on walking to Underjunon, but Reno and Rude, who had been tailing Evan in a helicopter ever since Rude accidentally killed Fabio, picked him up and flew him to Underjunon themselves. When Evan and Kyrie finally reunite, they immediately try to escape, but Elena shoots Evan in the shoulder without hesitation. He doesn't black out, but he is incapacitated and has to be brought to the clinic. 2 days later, at night when it's too dark to see anything, Evan hears a voice in his hospital room. Fabio's voice.
Fabio.
Before Evan can ask how he's
I
alive,
broke my nose
the person
'cause a
claiming
bird
to be
hit me
Fabio
on a
touches
roller
Evan's
coaster.
shoulder, and the wound
I don't
suddenly
know.
closes up.
I only know
Then
of the
Evan
man in
opens
the
his
real
eyes,
world
not
named
having
Fabio
even
that's a
realized
male
that they were
model from
closed,
like
and
a
Fabio's
VH1
gone.
I Love the Whatever
He wonders
show.
if it was a
And I
dream,
never knew
but
what he was
sure
famous
enough,
for.
The wound really is healed.
Or if he's still alive,
As
he
Evan
still
and Kyrie
exists,
try to figure out
or if
what
he was
just
just a
happened,
figment of
Reno
cultural
asks Sung if
imagination.
they can fly Evan and Kyrie to
But the
Nibelheim
name is
to help
powerful,
them complete
is
their
it not?
mission.
Fabio is a
Sung
powerful
notices
name.
that Reno's starting to get soft on Evan though, so he decides that he and Elena will do it instead. In the morning, Elena tells Evan about the deal. After all that's happened, Evan doesn't even care that much about chasing after his mother anymore, but Kyrie thinks they should go to try and find Gould Ard. Evan agrees, believing that everything will be alright as long as he and Kyrie are together. In the helicopter on the way to Nibelheim, Sung tells Evan that he suspects that if his mother was involved with Nibelheim somehow, it must have been after the incident when the village burned down. He
Right,
thinks she
because
may have
anybody
been
else
involved
is
with the cover-up.
pretty much liquidated.
As they near Nibelheim, Evan sees the out-of-place Shinra Manor and is suddenly reminded of the picture of the mummified arm in Dr. Drake's office, and gets the feeling that they might be connected somehow. When they enter the village, they almost immediately find Gould Ard, who has taken up charge of the security there. Evan figures that their job is done and that they can go report what they've found to Tyron. But Kyrie tells Gould that they're looking for Annette Townsend, and that Evan is her son. Gould wonders if Nick Foley ever found Evan, and after Evan fills him in, he tells Evan that Nick actually had wanted to earn Evan's trust all that time ago, because he figured if that didn't happen, then he had no chance of earning Annette's love. But Annette didn't love him, contrary to what Evan had thought. Even so, Nick went all the way back to Midgar in the hopes of tracking down Evan again. As for Annette, she had been in charge of taking care of what Gould describes as victims of Shinra's research in the town. But this work actually ended up taking her out of Nibelheim within the week of her arrival. The only thing Gould had heard from her since then was after Meteorfall, when a letter came from Icicle Inn from her addressed to Nick Foley. Nick had already left by that point though, so Gould still has the letter and gives it to Evan. Evan then takes it without reading it, then tells the Turks to take them to Icicle Inn to continue their investigation.
And here's
After
where we
they
get to the
there,
finale.
while they're waiting for someone who might know something about Annette to come to the inn, they rent some rooms, which means Evan has time to read his mother's letter. It's short, but it mentions a surgery that Annette didn't want Evan to know about, as well as a medical officer from Junon named Dr. Dimitri. With the letter is a contract that Annette signed for her payment for helping with the Nibelheim cover-up. Evan figures that it's talking about the heart surgery he'd had as a kid, and I guess he also suspects that it might have had something to do with his head. Maybe this is actually a completely different surgery. It's not very clear. We'll come back to what actually it's talking about, but I don't know what he thinks at this moment. Anyway, Evan now realizes that his mother must have only taken the Nibelheim job so she could get the money to pay for his surgery. Whether that means paying off a debt for the old one or having to pay for another one or something, you get the point.
Who knows?
When the inn's landlady finally arrives, she tells Evan and Kyrie everything she knows about Annette while Sung and Elena eavesdrop. Annette first came through the area around the same time as a bunch of black cloaked figures arrived heading north.
Take note that this is
These
Sung
were
and
the
Elena,
victims of
specifically as
Shinra's
we're getting
research
to the
that
end
Annette
and
had
we're
been
in
charge of
Icicle Inn.
protecting, and
If
she
you watch
was trying
Advent
to
Children,
bring them
this will
back
start to make more
Nibelheim,
sense.
but with no success. After a little while, she gave up and left, but then came back 2 months later to try and finish the job. Despite the landlady's protests, Annette headed north and never came back. When Evan asks what there is north of there, she tells him about the northern crater, and also about big crevices that had opened up in the ground between here and there when
I
the
like
life
it when
stream
you
came
call
out
me
of the
Big
earth.
Crevice.
Later, when Evan and Kyrie are talking, Sung and Elena hear them mention Dr. Dimitri, who Sung knows is the same as the Dr. Eugene he ran into in Junon. Later that night, Sung notices someone outside the window of his room, the silver-haired boy from Junon, and goes to investigate. Evan, oblivious, sees Fabio knocking on his window and opens it. Fabio tells Evan to meet him outside. Then, he threatens to kill Kyrie if he doesn't come out. That's when Evan realizes that something isn't right with him.
No
When he
shit.
leaves the inn, Fabio's
No
voice
shit.
leads him to a guard's
I
hut
felt
not
like
far
something
away.
was wrong
Inside
when my
the
friend
hut,
showed
the
up
person who
at a
looks like
place he had
Fabio
no
shows
right
Evan
being,
the photo
hundreds
of
of miles
mummified
from where he
Genova
should be,
arm,
and
reveals
immediately
that he
resorted
killed
to saying,
Dr.
"I'm going to
Drake
kill
to
your
get it."
girlfriend if you don't
Then
come
the
out and
boy,
say
we'll
hi."
keep calling him Kadaj, grabs Evan's arm and reads his mind, but is disappointed to find out that Evan doesn't know anything about Genova. So he undoes the healing he did to
Kadaj
Evan's
and the
shoulder,
gang
sending
are
Evan
really
sprawling on the
bad.
floor in pain.
They're really
Sung
bad
then
at what they're
enters the
trying
room.
to do.
Instantly, Kadaj starts looking into Sung's mind and finds that Sung too had hoped that Evan would be able to lead him to Genova. Then, sensing that Sung wonders if the boy is Genova, Kadaj reveals that Genova is his mother.
Mother.
He also senses Sung's thoughts of
mother.
Sephiroth, and remarks that he vaguely recognizes that name from within the live stream, and that there's something nasty about him. Ultimately realizing that Sung doesn't know anything that would be useful to him either, he once again causes Sung to black out, then disappears.
Yeah,
Luckily, Elena finds them soon
a
after
weird
and is able to give
antagonistic
Evan some
force
painkillers.
they make near the end of this
immediately
book.
recognizes that Kyrie might be in trouble and runs to the inn despite the pain. When he gets to Kyrie's room, he hears Kadaj talking to her as an old friend, even seeming to suggest that there had been something more between the two of them in the past. But then Kadaj very stupidly mentions that he doesn't like Evan to the point of wanting to kill him, so Kyrie wisely immediately shoots him. But his immunity to the bullets reveals him for the monster he is.
They even
As
in
he
the
summons a
movie,
narrow,
they
sharp
do
sword
show
from
that the other
midair,
two are stupid.
Evan grabs
but they don't
Kyrie
quite
and they
show
run
that
for it.
Kadaj is stupid. But he's
As
just
they
as
approach
stupid.
the village's southern exit, Kadaj suddenly appears in front of them, forcing them to turn and run north. Kyrie's fear of fire almost overtakes her as they pass the now burning Icicle Inn, but Evan is able to coax her onward. As they look back and see Sung's helicopter taking off, Kadaj jumps impossibly high onto the helicopter, which flies away with him still on board.
Wait, this part's awesome,
Suddenly
isn't it?
remembering what Dr. Drake told him about Genova,
Fucking-
Evan thinks of a way they might be able to beat the silver-haired boy. He and Kyrie run after the helicopter and eventually find one of the crevices in the ground. As they approach it, Kadaj appears behind them and begins taunting Kyrie with
I
the
thought they
memories
did something
of the
like
day the
eat him
real
out of the
Kadaj
helicopter
died.
at some point.
It had been Kadaj, along with their other two partners in crime, Yazoo and Laz, who had
Great
started
names.
the fire that ended up killing all three of them. Kyrie hadn't helped them, but she didn't try to stop them either.
Oh,
at
right,
least
yeah,
not hard enough.
that's how she knew
Kyrie
them.
tries to attack the monster, but he leaps over them and lands between them and the crevice. Kyrie leaps at him again, but he dodges easily, sending Kyrie over the edge of the crevice. Evan grabs her hand just in time, but Kadaj is intent on causing as much emotional pain as he can. He stabs Evan straight through his shoulder, and he lets go of Kyrie's hand.
Uh-oh.
Just as he thinks he's lost her forever, he hears her voice call out to him. She had landed on an outcropping a little ways down and is completely fine.
Can't get rid of her that easy.
Well, we've kind of been skipping over this plot thread a little, but Leslie actually met up with Reno and Rude a while back
Hey,
in
Leslie,
Junon, and they've
come
been
on.
following Sung and Elena in another helicopter, and they've just now caught up. Sung orders Reno to fire a missile on Kadaj, but Reno hesitates when he sees Evan there. Sung tries to tell Reno that Evan's already dead, but Reno knows that's a lie. He can't do it. He won't risk hurting his friend. So, Sung orders Elena to do it instead. Seeing what Sung's helicopter is about to do, Rude decides to get closer so they can shoot Kadaj without killing anyone else, saying that he doesn't like Evan, but he doesn't dislike Kyrie. Leslie starts shooting Kadaj with a machine gun, but of course it does nothing.
That's
Kadaj
what happens,
teleports
yeah.
into their helicopter, and they
Just
all
point
jump
blank
out of it to get
helicopter
away.
machine gun.
Seeing that Kadaj is now the only one in the other helicopter, Sung fires a missile at it, causing
He
it
blows
to
it the
crash.
fuck up.
The crash causes Evan to slide down into the crevice where Kyrie had landed. Then, Evan wraps his arms around her as the outcropping under their feet tumbles away. He tries to position himself under her to brace her fall, but the landing never comes. Instead, they find themselves floating in something soft and warm. They hear muffled voices around them. As they fall deeper and deeper, Evan realizes
Getting near
that
the
they're
end.
in the life stream. Eventually, they become drowsy and drift
We
off
cut
to
off like
sleep.
the last chunk of this.
When they wake up, they find themselves in a
we can
cave
just
made of
watch the
ice
last
next
chunk
to
of
a
this.
hole filled with water that they seem to have emerged from. They wonder if the cave had been made by the life stream when it came out of the earth 2 years ago. The life stream seems to have healed Evan's shoulder too. The two of them try to find their way out of the cave before they freeze, figuring that there must be a way out that the life stream had used to reach the surface.
I sneeze. Oh shit.
After walking for 2 hours, they finally reach the end of the cave, but find that the way out is too high up for them to reach. They also find something ominous. 12 black-cloaked corpses piled on each other. Then, nearby, Evan sees another body. His mother. They find on her corpse another letter addressed to Nick Foley, saying how she felt responsible for the deaths of the Black
Remember,
Robe figures,
she was taking care
pleading
of
with him
the
to get
Black
the money
Robes
to Evan.
in Nibelheim, and they just started
He also
wandering off.
finds the letter to her that he had left at their house in Midgar before going to live in the slums. On the back is a letter back to Evan that Annette had written, not even expecting that Evan would ever see it. Thankfully, for both him and us though, it clears up a lot of things. Evan's heart surgery when he was 5 had been a success, but the doctors also found that he had a hematoma in his head that would grow until it eventually killed him. Annette had never been able to afford a surgery to get it removed until she got the opportunity to help with the Nibelheim job. The letter tells Evan to find Dr. Dimitri in Junon to give him the operation. She also finally confesses who Evan's father is. She then tells him to find and thank some people for her. Vincent Valentine, who had helped her in Midgar after she left Icicle Inn, and Sid Highwind and Barrett Wallace, who had helped her when she returned to the inn afterwards. They find one more thing that Annette had with her, a strange parcel that's somehow still warm. They take it for their own warmth.
Oh boy.
Suddenly, they hear a voice behind them.
Oh boy.
It's Kadaj, who managed to track them down for revenge. Evan and Kyrie run for it, but Kyrie trips, sending the contents of the warm parcel flying. It's something that Evan recognizes. The mummified arm that was in Dr. Drake's picture. Kadaj sees it and immediately recognizes the cells of Genova, his mother.
Mother!
Evan quickly kicks it into another nearby hole leading down to the life stream, and Kadaj dives after it.
What a genius.
As soon as he touches the water, though, it seems to almost come to life and drag him down under. Kadaj disappears, swearing that he'll come back even stronger. That had been Evan's plan for defeating him in the first place. Lead him to where he hoped the life stream would be, and then hope the life stream itself would take care of him. Not knowing what else to do, Evan and Kyrie wander around some more, calling out from hole after hole, until they finally hear one of the last voices they were expecting, Leslie.
Leslie!
After being rescued by Reno and Rude, they're flown to Under Junon. Evan meets Dr. Eugene Dimitri, who reveals that he had lied to Annette
your
about the
non-party
problem with
member
Evan's head after
follow
hearing that
along
Evan
for an
was a son
entire
of President
chapter.
Shinra,
'Cause he's
hoping
cool as
that he
fuck.
would be able to charge a lot of money
Even if he's
for
not
another
quite
surgery
as cool in
and make a big
Remake
score
as
from
he is
it.
in this book.
When Annette never came back to him for the surgery, he completely forgot about it for years. So yeah, this entire story is literally completely his fault. He is sorry for it now, though. But then Sung just starts beating the crap out of the guy, which you'll love to see, but Evan tells him to stop, knowing that his mother wouldn't have approved. Sung does tell him that they're going to take him in after learning of his crimes, though. It's not clear why Sung lost his cool, but it seems to me that he's come to agree with Reno that, well, the kids are alright. When they return to Edge, they find that Dr. Drake actually isn't dead, but had been nursed back to health by his own patients and other doctors from around Edge. Since Leslie and Marl are living in Evan's house, Evan decides to stay at Fabio's place and take care of Vitz. He's not doing very well, both because of the loss of his brother and his geostigma. Kyrie visits often, and eventually basically comes to live there as well. Before long, they get a letter from Tyr Ard saying that Gould had contacted him, and they were going to see each other again soon. The letter contains much gratitude in the form of both written words and money. Everything seems to be going fine, except for Vitz and the many others still suffering from the stigma.
Yeah, well, that's
by this time,
the story for a
Shinra's
different
monument to
piece
those
of
who
media.
had died during Meteor Fall is finally finished. Okay, we've finally made it to Advent Children. There is still a little bit of the kids are alright left, but literally the very next thing I say about it after this spoiler warning is going to give away the ending of the movie.
Alright, so close your ears for I think it's only 2 minutes. He's got this time stamped. For the next minute and a half, close your ears if you don't want to hear a spoiler for Advent Children. Though I'm going to be super honest. I don't know what plot exists in Advent Children to spoil, but I'll see what his opinion of that is, and I guess.
So if you haven't watched it, please do so now. It's available on Amazon and YouTube to rent or buy. Unfortunately, the English dubs of the extended version Advent Children Complete don't seem to exist for digital online purchase, if they exist at all, at least not that I can find.
They do now.
I would still recommend watching this version with the English subtitles
like
instead of just the original
they
version
do now.
though. For those of you who are going through the Final Fantasy VII compilation watch along with me, by the time you get to this part of the video, another video will be up on my second channel of me and Captain Joe, who you'll know from streams, watching the movie. We will be watching the complete version, but obviously we can't have the footage of the movie in the video for copyright reasons, so you'll still have to buy or rent the movie yourself to watch it along with us. Or you can just watch the movie and then watch the video for my commentary afterwards. Or you can just completely ignore my commentary video. I don't care.
Is this spoiler at all?
Alright, I think that's all I have to say about that. So if you haven't watched the movie yet, please leave now.
Okay, now the spoilers are starting.
Okay, welcome back if you just got done watching Advent Children, and thanks for sticking around this long to anyone who had seen it already. Let's continue. One rainy day, Vitz suddenly starts trying to get out of the house, saying that he needs to get to the church in the slums.
Oh,
Evan
I
and
see.
Kyrie think he's just out of it from a fever. But soon they hear the news from Leslie
spoiler?
that
Is
people
it
who
not
go
the
to the church
inevitable
could be healed of
end of that
geostigma.
movie?
As they enter Edge's Central Plaza on their way to the slums, they see that the monument has...
I'm going to be straight up with you. I thought the dude was going to say, and then Kadosh turned into Sephiroth. Spoiler. And I'm like, he's on the fucking cover. Alright, sorry.
Been completely destroyed. They can't help but wonder if they'll see the Turks again, and what they would do if they did. When they reach the church, they meet Cloud, who is noticeably different, even to Evan, who had hardly met Cloud before. Cloud recognizes Evan, and even asks if he made it to Nibelheim. Denzel, Marlene, and Tifa say hi too. Cloud compares the four of them to Evan, Kyrie, and Vitz, not related by blood, but still family. Tifa mentions that she wants to catch up with them later, but they had to get to 7th Heaven because the entire OG team was going to gather there for a party, even Vincent. When Evan hears Vincent's name, he remembers his mother's letter and decides to ask about it later. They part ways and the three of them enter the church. Sure enough, Vitz goes into the spring where the flower bed used to be and is healed. Filled with wonder, Evan and Kyrie touch the water and recognize the feel of the life stream. Alright, we're on the home stretch now. Only 2 more short stories to go.
Okay, that's the end of what we're actually going to watch on this video. Because he's going to explain something that I can just show us. And also the other one is something that's related to Remake, which I don't... The Remake book in Extended Materials, I want to talk about that after we've actually played Remake on here. It makes more sense, because while you might be able to assume that certain things that happened in the past could happen in Remake and original FF7 universe, you don't exactly want to make that assumption. You should probably see what they both are and then understand that before you go read the book that was literally written as a side piece for Remake, not FF7. You know what I mean? So, what I've got left as a one little final thing is that you really can't watch this anywhere, so I'll go ahead and do it then. I have the episode, Denzel. Let's see, where is it? Where's that damn thing? You can't buy this online, you can't view it online. They're not even gonna put it in the goddamn theatrical release as a short you can watch beforehand. So basically, this is turned into Last Order. It's another piece of media they've left defunct, basically. But there's really no reason for it to be that way, you know? So I wanted to save it for the end, because if they don't like me playing this, I guess I'll just clip it out and not put it in the highlight or whatever. But shit, man. If we're gonna go over all the material, well, people can't even watch this if they want to. It's the fucked up part. Where is it? I've got it in some old ass folders from 2018. I've had this folder's from 2018. God damn. And I mean, this thing's from, God, whenever Blu-rays first came out, I guess. Let's see. Here we go. Yeah. Okay, this is cool. All right, so The reason the guy didn't want to talk about the Denzel story from On the Way to the Smile till the end is because it's got a framing device where it's after Advent Children, or maybe even Dirge of Cerberus, where the conversation that starts showing the events of that book happen. I don't think that's a good enough reason to say it goes last in the timeline. I think it goes exactly where it shows up in the book. But hey, let's take one last second here to say thank you again to the guy who did this, Phil Games, because, you know, this was not actually a very easy thing to get like a good synopsis of all these books. I mean, I've read them myself and I could say it, but that could have taken like 3 or 4 streams because I would have gone chapter by chapter and it would have taken much longer. He actually did that in a very good way, I'd say. So props to him for that. Yeah. Anyway, if someone has a problem with it, I'll cut it out. I'll cut it out of my fucking broadcast or highlight or whatever. We've gone through a shit ton. So before Crisis, all the books in the original compilation, Last Order, and this episode Denzel. So I would highly recommend go watch Advent Children if you haven't yet. What we're gonna do next week is play Dirge of Cerberus with this. Let me show you kind of what it looks like with this this HD texture pack that someone made recently. It looks pretty decent, all things considered. Dirge of Cerberus is a third-person shooter.
Found you.
Action game, but not really because it wants to be DMC, and it's just not. It takes place a year after Advent Children, so yes, if you can watch Advent Children, if you haven't seen any of the stuff before we get to it next week, it will be of some benefit. It doesn't really touch on the events of Advent Children other than, like, Geostigma's dealt with, basically. But it's all about Vincent, baby. It's all about shooting people with your gun. Because it's 2000... Did this game come out in 2006? Hold on. Did Dirge of Cerberus come out in 2006? This game came out the same fucking year as Shadow the Hedgehog. I love it. I love it. This is the flavor of 2006, I guess. Anyway, it's not a good game. But it's a game that's so bad we can have some fun with it, I think. So I'm trying to remember how long to beat. How long to beat Dirge of Cerberus? How long is this game to beat?
Now where am I supposed to meet Reeve?
Okay. How long to beat? Dirge. Disturb. 11.5 hours. We can make it a 2-streamer. We can probably make it fit into 2 streams. I just need to remember that. The game is a little bit over 2 streams, but if I just start them earlier and maybe go a little late those days, we can get it in 2 streams. Something we could also do is, like I said with before, that Grimoire Valentine channel has the story for the online story, which is its own story. It's a prequel, but we'll play the real game first and then watch this. We can watch through that too, which is weird. But who knows? Who knows? It could be relevant in some way. But yeah, we're getting very close to getting through the FF7 content here before Rebirth. So if we look at this, let's say we spend the next 2 weeks. We're going to play Dirge of Cerberus on the 17th and the 14th. We're going to beat Dirge of Cerberus on Valentine's Day? All right, sure. Well, we're going to beat Dirge of Cerberus by the end of Valentine's Day. Sure, why not? I guess that's how it's going. And then we'll start playing Remake. And since the shitty part is, of course, since Rebirth isn't coming out on PC until May, so I'll have an extra that I'm not gonna be able to like play it on release. But if we play Remake and Intergrade, like those games are decent. That's a decently long game. If I'm playing it once a week, hell, we might get it done around the time the Rebirth hits PC and it'll work well. Who knows? But whatever the case, this stream got exactly what I needed to accomplish done, I think, which is all of these weird side miscellaneous materials that are not easy to cover. They're not games. And obviously I can't show a full feature film on here because of copyright stuff, but this hit all of those little idiosyncratic things. We can do Dirge of Cerberus, and then we'll go into Remake. Maybe I'll do Ever Crisis. Maybe I'll do the Ever Crisis and the... No. Because Ever Crisis has come out after Remake, and it probably has some elements that would make sense to talk about after Remake. We'll do Remake, and then we'll do like a little summary where I go through the whatever's come out for Ever Crisis on its original story, and also any novel stuff I can summarize for that. And then hopefully Rebirth is ready on PC by that point, and we are good to go. But anyway, I started the stream early today, but it's going to last about the same amount of time, so we're probably going to put it to a close now. Hope you enjoyed watching along with this stuff with me. Thanks to the people who've done these, recap videos and stuff like that. These were super useful. Like I said, I didn't get all the way through this guy's book recap, the Oni Black Mage Before Crisis, this fan dub by Still Thinking Films, and the book one we just watched with Phil. Those were all great. Props to those folks, because they saved me from not being able to talk for a week. All right, guys, I'm gonna leave you with some exit music, and I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is our play something that's relatively new day, or Thursday. That's what Thursdays are, so we're gonna be continuing the Pal World playthrough. I played a little bit in the interim. I have not progressed anything. I haven't moved forward in the map. I caught a bunch of chickens and powered up our giant chickapea. And went into some of the dungeons we saw before and got a couple extra giant versions of palace we've already gotten. But besides that, I haven't advanced. I'm going to leave plenty of new surprises because I haven't see a bunch of new content alongside you guys as we're playing Pal World again tomorrow. And then Friday is Final Fantasy XIV. I haven't done the 6.55 patch content yet, or like the Manderville stuff, so that's probably what we're going to be doing Friday night. And finally, on Sunday, we have what I think is going to be the first episode of Sega Sundays. We're going to look through a chronological by-date release of games on Sega consoles. So we're going to start by looking at the SG-1000 games. There's not that many of them, so we'll probably get to some Master System launch titles as well. Anyway, we got lots of good content coming up, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to leave you guys with some exit music, and you can have a good evening.